fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going in the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson! Anderson's up to
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Here on the iRacing Esports Network, we make sure that we bring you some of the best that online sim racing has to offer, and the same is sure to happen today. Welcome, one and all. We're SimSpeed TV. This is the international division of the Majors Series, the classic 2 hours of Sebring in the Camel GT Championship cars. That is the Nissan GTP ZX Turbo and the Audi 90 GTO, two classic, fast, hard racing cars around one of the fastest, hardest, bumpiest tracks around, Sebring. My name's Reese Gardner. Joining me in the commentary box, Jay Kennedy. Jay, I cannot wait to get this race started. I love these cars. I love this track. This is going to be a great one.
Yeah, it's a really, really cool combination. Hello, everyone. It's going to be a really cool race. As you said, it's a hard car in multiple ways. It's hard to drive, but it's also very, very tough in this circuit as well. It's probably a circuit that the drivers aren't too happy to have to race these cars at. A few drivers said Daytona last year was a lot more enjoyable. This is proving to be a real challenge, and some of the qualifying times really show it. There's been a big mix within the field, but a decent field. We've got nearly 30 cars out on track, which is pretty competitive. We've got 30 cars out on track, I should say.
Yeah, certainly, and it's split about 50-50 between the two classes. So there are two classes. The two cars are in their own separate classes. We do have the Nissan GTP, so pretty similar to one of the old Group C sports prototypes, but it's got more downforce, more power. It's built more for a sprint racing sort of environment. And this car on screen now, the Audi 90 GTO, this was one of the most innovative racing cars of the 1980s. Full-time four-wheel drive system using Audi's Quattro system, and took many wins in IMSA GTO racing with the likes of Hans Stuck at the wheel. Certainly looking forward to seeing how these cars go around a place like this. It's not quite the layout of Sebring that they raced back in the day, but Sebring is a track that certainly lends itself well to this kind of racing, no matter what kind of layout it is. And while the drivers may not enjoy it, we certainly are going to, because you can see how these cars handle the bumps, especially the Nissan. Very stiff, very easy to spin, as is being very handily demonstrated right there.
Just proves how tough it is to drive. But it's such an old school feeling track, isn't it, Sebring? So it really does fit the cars for the era of these cars. It's an old school feel track in old school cars. It means that we're going to have a really cool combination, but there's some pretty competitive drivers out there, some big names in the Oz NZ sim racing community who have jumped into the series as well, which is always good to see.
Yeah, certainly. We've got Sam Sutton currently topping the practice timesheets for TTL Esports in the Nissan GTP class. 1 minute 47.466 is the time on screen for him as we into 8 minutes left in the practice session, and you can see how much that car struggles to get through the hairpin with any semblance of grace, but once they get to the higher speed sections of the track, that's where this car really shines.
I think the big thing that a lot of drivers not getting the grip on is the way that the turbo behaves in these cars. It's so different to a modern car, and you can just see how much it's sliding through the corner as well. The aerodynamics might look very, very aero the car, but it doesn't really behave in the way that it looks in regards to aerodynamics as well, so it makes it really tough to drive. A real different challenge, and one that the drivers in some ways really enjoy and in other ways absolutely dread.
Yeah, certainly. You make a good point about the turbo, Jay. The fact that, of course, this was in the 1980s, the late 80s, when people were only really starting to have widespread use of turbo technology in cars. Of course, you had the turbo era in Formula One in the 1980s, and then the likes of Group C and IMSA GTP following suit with that. And the Nissan, the turbo is very much on or off. It's certainly, if you go in the middle of a corner and the turbo spools up on you, it's very difficult to recover the car. In fact, talking with, I believe it was David Brabham that iRacing interviewed when they developed this car, he pointed out that the car was actually quite understeery at first. So to fix that, they put toe out on the rear tires, which you don't usually do.
It's a really bizarre way that they've got the car to behave, and setup has been big trouble for a lot of the drivers during the week as well. So getting a bit of an old school mindset to the car behaviour as well is tough for drivers that may not race these cars or may exclusively drive open wheel cars or slower cars like the MX-5 and things like that. This is an absolute different beast to what a lot of drivers are used to. The drivers that are really multi-talented across all different cars are going to be the ones that will shine today, which is pretty much what the majors is all about.
Yep, that's exactly right. Meanwhile, in the Audi, this is Ash Lear out on track at the moment with 5 minutes to go. He has got some amazing pace in this car. We're expecting him to do very well here. The Audi 90, it shook up the GTO scene when it first came in late 1980s itself. Most GTO cars at the time were powered by the big block V8s and the likes of that, but then you had the Japanese manufacturers coming in with their smaller engines, their turbo engines, but they were all rear-wheel drive, and then Audi comes in with a turbo 5-cylinder engine and full-time all-wheel drive, and proceeds to, in some cases, wipe the floor with them. It was a very awesome car in its day, and it still is now.
Yeah, it's an amazing beast. It's a very, very tough car to drive. It's so unique to every other car on the iRacing service. Very, very tough to downshift. If you're very, very skilled at heel toe, you'll fit in quite well. If you're not too good at a heel toe, you really will struggle. I'm one of those ones that cannot drive this car because I cannot heel toe to save myself. So the drivers that are really accustomed to doing that, drivers that have had some real world experience, will really shine in this car. If you haven't had a drive of this car, you have driven out there on the track for real, jump in this car because it will be a challenge that you will enjoy.
Yeah, certainly. It's one of those cars that, once again, it's very primitive compared to the racing cars of today. With today's four-wheel drive racing cars, the likes that you see in rallying and rallycross, there's a lot more configurability, but with the Audi, you basically got to set it up a certain way and then adapt yourself to the car during the race. You can't alter much on the fly in that thing.
No, you're right. There's not much adjustment once you get it set up, so you really have to put a bit of work in before to set your car up properly. The other thing too is the multi-class aspect of this race. So the pace difference. Always there's a little bit of bumping between Lear and Daniel Stevens in the MFR entry, but the speed difference between the two cars was really, really evident there when the Nissan under brakes. Huge difference in braking performance between the two cars. But it's going to be a really, really tight race, 120 minutes of racing. The interesting thing too is the fuel strategy today is going to be really interesting, Reece. I don't know if you've caught up too much about that, but the Nissans all will pretty much have to do 2 stops, around about 26, 27 laps to a tank. Same number of laps to a tank in the Audi, which means that some drivers may be borderline getting it done on 1 stop, looking at about a 58 lap race for the Audis, which means 29 laps to a stint. If you're only getting 27 to a tank, makes it quite interesting to work out what you want to do.
Yeah, right. So fuel saving may definitely be a factor in the Audi field, which, when you think about it, it's actually pretty easy to fuel save in the Audi because you're lifting off the throttle a lot of the time anyway on the upshifts, and because of the complex nature of the way you got to shift that car, it's very easy to just coast a little bit in between some slow corners and save a little bit of extra fuel.
Yeah, we'll probably see the drivers that have really thought about that strategy will be quite happy to let other guys pass and just tuck in the toe You see quite a lot in other races and a lot of our V8 supercar races where drivers will be happy to tuck in behind another car and use the draft and just sort of tuck along behind and let someone else drag them along. So we'll see if that happens in this race tonight. I wouldn't be surprised to see quite a few cars just use the draft as an opportunity to fuel save, and maybe even teammates starting to work together to alternate lap after lap and use that fuel saving advantage from being in the draft. The way that you use your teammates around here could be very, very key to how the performance of the race goes too.
Yes, indeed. And talking of teams, we do have, once again, quite a few in this one getting their own sort of strategies up and running. The likes of Middle Finger Racing and Kinetic as well. Those teams are definitely ones to watch throughout the course of this one.
Have a quick look at the Drivers' Championship before we get into the race. Of course, after 2 rounds, Jason Martin leading the way. He wasn't too keen on racing the race today. He didn't think that he was going to enjoy this this race at all, but he's decided to jump in and wanting to hold on to that championship lead that he's got at the moment. 75 points ahead of Robert Northway. James Robbie in 3rd, but the one name that you notice is completely missing off that list. Josh Nowak, after 2 rounds, our season champion from last time out, also not here tonight. He's on big fat 0 at the moment, so he's going to have a really tough time of regaining that championship going forward. It's going to be a real tough ask for him to hold on to the number 1 for next year.
Yeah, certainly, and yeah, it hasn't exactly been the most swimming time for Josh Nowak in this season so far. Hopefully, he'll be able to get back in there and continue his success in this series, but for now, it's time for the likes of Martin Northway and Robbie to shine, so it'll be interesting to see what they can do here, especially considering that we do have a few new names in this particular field that we have not seen before.
Yeah, 100%. There's a few different drivers out there which will mix up the way the points are distributed throughout the championship after this round. In the sportsmen's standings, Eric Thorpe leading the way there with Gary LaViolette and Dave Douglas, the top 3. That's a fairly closely contested championship, as always, as well. Legends Championship, no surprise to see John King well and truly out on top for this season. Only 5 drivers in that championship at the moment. So yeah, if you are wanting to participate in the Legends Championship, make sure you do jump in and put your hand up and say, hey, I'll have a crack. In regards to the Teams Championship, it is very, very tight. Between Kinetic Swift Racing and SimSpeed Esports, we've got a little bit of a soft spot for that team, obviously, with connection to most of the drivers in that team being part of the SimSpeed crew. So very, very tight. Only 148 points separating Kinetic and SimSpeed Esports. In the Teams Championship, we're just about to get the grid coming up on screen. They've got a full lap under the safety car, so it will take a little while for the drivers to get around. So we've got a bit of time to go through this grid, but I'll let you take it away, Reece.
Yes, indeed. On pole position, we've got Sam Sutton and Corey Ott joining him on the front row there. Cam Dance in 3rd place with Dean Moll joining him on row 2. Radar Anderson in 5th with Robert Northway 6th, and the top 8 rounded out by Daniel Atchison and James Robbie.
We go to Aruto Amro and Dave Douglas on the 5th row. Daryl Hockey and Riley Curtis on the 6th row of the grid. Trevor Mack, Rory Boyd and Matt Hunter round out the field in the Nissans. And the first car in the Audis, pole by 1.2 seconds, Ashley Lear for Talking.
Yes, indeed. He is going to be joined by Matthew Clote and Brett Gerards in the top 3. Jason Martin, your championship leader, in there as well. Then we got Shane Bowen and John King, with Trent Gosley, Daniel Stevens and Jonathan Ben rounding out that section of the Audis. The field rounded out by Brad Matheson, Sheridan, Ryan DeCartier-McCarthy, Drew Lalonde, Scott Kukas and Craig Hawkins. A very nice round 30-car grid for us here.
Not only that, we've got exactly the same number in each class. We've got 15 in the Nissans, 15 in the Audis. Tell the difference between the two classes on screen. Nissan blue for the Nissans and Audi red for the Audis in our overlays to make it nice and easy to work out who is who and where your favourite driver is positioned.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to this one. So, behind the iRacing Roof RT12R safety car, these guys lining up. The Audis already starting to fall back a bit from the Nissans, so that they can have a clean start just in case any of the Nissans come a cropper.
Interesting too, Reece. This will be the last time we have the roof as our safety car, as we move to the Porsche for next year, for next season in iRacing, which will mean the next race that we have in all of our road races will be in the Porsche.
Yes, indeed, and I suppose a very fond farewell to the Roof RT12R, because it's almost a relic of a bygone era before Porsche came on board with iRacing and really invested in sim racing as they have now. So congrats to Porsche, and a big thank you to Porsche as well for coming on board and contributing so much prize money to the iRacing World Championship. Fantastic to see. So the next time you see a safety car out on track on SimSpeed TV, it's going to be in the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car.
Strategy, as we said, is going to be key today. 2 stops for the Nissan, definitely, but the Audi is going to be interesting, and how strategy is going to play out. Just noticing too, Cameron Dance is not taken to the grid.
Oh.
It's surprising. He was due to start in 3rd position. He's trying to go for the championship this season, and that is going to be a really tough ask for him to come through, but weather-wise, it is quite warm out on track. We will see that track temp increase over the next 2 hours as well. It's currently at 37 degrees Celsius, nearly 100 Fahrenheit. That could get up towards 45 by the end of this race.
Yes, indeed. Very hot track out there in the center of Florida at the moment. Hearing from Cam Dance that apparently it was some technical issues with his operating system that put him out there. It's taken him a bit too long to jump back into the server after restarting his computer, so that is the reason that he has not taken to the grid. A lot of work for Dance to do.
Yeah, he's just going to have to try and salvage as many points as he can, and he might have to use this as one of his 2 drop rounds for the championship. Not something you want to do based on tech issues. You'd prefer to have that on a bad performance or a bit of bad luck as opposed to some tech issues. But we'll see how he goes coming back through the field. It will be a good watch as he works his way through the field as we get ready to take the green flag.
Yes, indeed. So Sam Sutton's going to be leading them away once the safety car pulls in. When he goes is up to him. The green flag flies and away he goes, and that's a good jump there from Cam Dance. Corey Ott, I think, caught sleeping a little there, but maintaining positions as they come into the first corner. Good clean start from the Nissans, which is what you want to see.
Nice and clean as well for the most part. Looks like we're going to get into turn 1 relatively clean. A couple of side-by-side action, but most of the field have gone into single file straight away, which is great to see.
Yes, indeed. That's the kind of thing that you want to focus on in a 2-hour race. It's all about where you are in the last 5 or 10 minutes of the race. Everything else is just building up to that. So already seeing Cameron Dance try and make his way up through the Audi field, just managed to get out of the pits there. So I don't think many of the Audi drivers were expecting to be facing a Nissan in their mirrors this quickly, but Cam Dance is going to be going hell for leather and jumping back up to the end of the Nissan field there. Oh, goodness me, Ashley are going a little bit wide. That's not going to... Yeah, that's really hurt Leah. That's not going to help him at all. That has allowed Matthew Clote... Brett Gerards, Brett Gerards now taking the lead of the Audis. And that is going to leave Ash very unhappy as he overshoots the turn
almost
a
right
little
into
bit.
the tail of Brett Gerards there too, so he's got to be a little bit careful as he tries to regain the lead. These two have been the pace setters throughout the week, so watch to see these two drive away from the rest of the field. Lear has been really quick, but I know he hasn't done a huge amount of race setup practice. He's been mainly focused on 1-lap speed, so if he can generate that into race pace, he will likely blitz away from the field. I know that the MFR boys have been doing a lot of race practice, so that could bode very, very well to make this fight a little bit more interesting than what it will look pre-race.
Yeah, certainly. Well, in terms of the Nissans, looking at Robert Northway and Daniel Aitchison in 5th and 6th place. These guys just getting themselves sorted on the first couple of laps through the very bumpy exit of turn 1, and already Ash Lear monstering the back of Brett Gerards here. But look at who's almost starting to hang on in 3rd there. That's Shane Bowen, just trying his best there to hang on to the tail end of the top two.
Love the sound of the onboard under brakes there, and also Jason Martin doing a great job hanging on the rear as well. So Martin definitely can't be discounted. He does talk himself down in regards to his road racing ability. Did a great job at Daytona in both the 2.4 and of course winning the Daytona 500. He has had a great start to this season.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been one of the star drivers of this season so far, and managing to keep himself up there in the top 4 in the Audi class. Brett Geraert's running a little bit wide. Lear had to stop on the apex there. That's brought Bowen and Martin right into this.
Sorry, Racer, just got caught with a bit of ice in my mouth at that time.
No worries.
Absolutely stinking hot here today, so the fluid intake is very, very important. That is actually something else to factor in these 2-hour races too. Extremely hot conditions in southeastern Australia at the moment, so a few of the drivers will be really starting to struggle. If you've been watching the about supercar coverage today, 41 in Adelaide today. That's 106 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you in the States trying to work out what that is. So very, very hot conditions and very, very tough for drivers, not only in real racing, but sim racing as well. With the heat coming off the screens, it can be very intense. And for those with VR, it would be hellacious today.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, people tend to underestimate just how much the physical world around you impacts your sim racing ability. So the drivers do have to watch out for that. Look at the run that Ashley has got here. My goodness. I think Brett Geraert's may have missed a gear there. Very easy to do in the Audi. It doesn't have a gearbox that just clicks into gear like the Nissan does. You've really got to work the gearbox in this thing, and it looks like Ashley has managed to be able to do that.
Yeah, we'll see if Ashley can run away at the front of this Audi field. But have a look at Jason Martin. He's closed up that gap to Shane Bowen very, very quickly. He's looking to get this move done and get himself into a podium spot very early in this one.
Yes, indeed. He's monstering the back of Shane Bowen there at the moment, which is very exciting to see. And that is not the best run from Shane Bowen there. As we look at Sam Sutton, he is well in the lead. Not much pressure from behind from Coriot. Mole in third. Anderson doing rather well, maintaining position, but Aitchison and Northway still fighting very hard.
I actually think Aitchison looks a bit quicker than Northway, and they were getting very, very close.
That might have been a slowdown for
Bowen.
Northway.
We go Bowen Gosling getting involved in this too as he gets past Jason Martin.
Yeah, goodness me. What on earth is going on there? That's obviously an issue for Jason Martin. Maybe he missed a gear.
Yep, and now here comes Daniel Stevens to get involved in this too. As running wide there, Shane Bowen. Bowen's struggling here.
That's not optimal. Yeah, very difficult part of the circuit in the Audi, constantly fiddling around with the gear lever. So, in the midst of all that, he's gone
So
many
James
positions. Oh dear.
Had a bit of a spin, has James Robbie.
That's definitely not optimal. I'm going to rewind and have a look at what happened to him. Just looks to me like he lost it on his own in the middle of Sunset Bend. Again, an easy thing to do. Big bumps right in the middle of that turn, especially on the outside. Really unsettles the Nissan.
Apologies too. It doesn't look like we're going to be able to have any replays today. I'm having all sorts of tech issues with my equipment as well. It must be the day for it, so we won't have any replays available up on screen throughout this race, unfortunately. But we'll try our best without them. As just seen Shane Bowen lose another spot, so he's really struggling here.
Oh, yeah, he certainly is. Stuck on the outside of Sunset Bend. Definitely not having the best of times. So now he's stuck on the inside there for turn one, and it's very difficult to run side by side through that turn. It's very wide, yes, but it's also very bumpy, and the line that actually has grip on it is very narrow.
Yeah, and there's so many ways that you can approach that turn one that all feel wrong as well. So I don't think I've ever got through turn one at Sebring and felt like, there's almost contact between Bowen and Cloak. Turn one, you never feel like you've got it right. You always feel like you could have got more out of the car through that corner. It's just such a weird corner. How wide it feels when you approach that corner. It just never feels like you've got carried enough speed through. Matthew Cloak looks really strong here, and a mistake for Trent Gosling. Sorry, for Jason Martin getting through on Trent Gosling there.
Yes, indeed. So Jason Martin back up to third position. Gosley is not letting him go, though. You can see the really pressuring him under the brakes, but it looks like Martin actually is able to get off the corners very nicely in the Audi. And one of the things that you have to consider in the Audi is that, whoa, goodness me, Gosley. Oh, bit of a slide, sending a cone flying, and he is really losing ground. My goodness.
Yeah, he is. He's really starting to struggle as well. So Gosley got that move done, but as soon as he got through, he's lost all of that momentum he had. And I'm wondering if track conditions are starting to affect a few of these drivers. Is it also Daniel Stevens running wide?
Oh, yeah. Goodness me. A lot of drivers having trouble with the Audi here today. And this is something that I alluded to in the practice session before the race started, as we take a look at a blimp view of this battle. Almost going 3 wide down the back stretch here at Sebring. Stevens just holding on around the outside. He's covering them off nicely there as they go under the bridge, but a little bit of oversteer on the exit. Yes, the car has 4-wheel drive, but you still don't want to slide it very much. And did Clote miss a gear there? Maybe. He's managing to stay in touch, but that's the kind of racing that you see in the Audi. The drivers are having as much trouble with their own cars as much as each other.
Yeah, they're more worried about themselves than worrying about what anyone else is doing. He's just seeing Cameron Dance has got through on Riley Curtis, so now he's up into 12th position. Rory Boyd just up the road ahead. Not too much battling going on in the Nissan class, though. It's mainly this big, huge pack we're seeing here. 6 drivers involved because John King's got onto the tail of this pack now. The front of the field in the Audis, Lear now has a 1.6 second lead.
Yes, indeed.
Oh,
He's
here comes
doing
Clote.
very well as Lear. And Clote, yes, down the inside of the hairpin. More side-by-side running between these two just behind them. It's always awesome to see them both get off the corners so fast. Shane Bowen and Jonathan Ben battling there. And this is something that I was alluding to before with the Audi. The fact that the 4-wheel drive system is configurable, as we see another move, but it really alters how you can get out of the corners. If you put too much of the drive to the rear, then there's too much oversteer. You put too much of the drive to the front, then you don't get as much of a good exit. My goodness, side by side through tower turn.
You don't want to bounce it off the curb there either. That is not a good idea, as we're seeing Anderson and Northway side by side. Northway through. Northway starting to make some moves here. He's up into 4th position.
Yeah, Daniel Aitchison actually dropped off the back of Robert Northway some time ago. Not sure why, but now Northway and Andresen going at it. I'm sure that's the last thing we're going to see of them.
But they're going to continue that fight for a little while. Jason Martin, Trent Gosley, change of position. Martin's missed a gear in the back straight and is now back into 4th position. But have a look at this pack. John King looking to make moves as well. Alexander Sheridan not too far off getting into this train as well.
Yeah, this is just a constant flurry of different lines being taken and the cars being strong in different places. Sometimes drivers will miss the shift up from 2nd into 3rd, maybe from 4th to 5th. All depends. So all these guys making their own little errors, which is bringing them very close together. Bowen coming off the best out of these guys at the moment, but losing ground to Daniel Stevens and John King with these 2 guys in front of him, he is going to start looking very racy.
Yeah, definitely. He'll start to work on getting his way up through the field. Of course, we saw last season, he did a great job just being so consistent throughout all of these races, getting himself great results the whole way through. But you know, one thing that we haven't really factored in is traffic. When the faster cars come through, as a big lock-up there for Matthew Clote as he went to make a move on Jonathan Ben. Sam Sutton at the front of the field is already starting to lap the tail enders in the Audi, so we won't see. It won't be too long before we'll start to see Nissans and Audis battling together as Martin, Gosley, and Daniel Stevens all get together very, very tight. This is incredible racing. This feels like it's a 10-lap sprint race, and not for what these guys will be a 58, 59-lap race.
I remember when the Camel GT Championship first started, when these cars were added to iRacing, and I was there for the first rounds. I raced in the Audi in the broadcasted races, and it was some of the most fun I had ever had on iRacing. The racing was just like this, non-stop. A little bit of a look there from Daniel Stevens, but this is the kind of racing that you get with the likes of the Audi. There's so much that can go wrong, so much finesse required to ease this car to where you want it to go. You get racing like this all the time. Look at the run that Jason Martin's got there on Trent Gosley. An excellent run coming up to Sunset. Gosley's trying to hold on around the outside, but I don't know if it's going to work. Have a look at Stevens there behind him as well, almost going all the way out to the tyre wall. Oh, careful, Daniel.
He'll slingshot though and get a big run coming down the front straight. He'll also get double draft too, so he could get side by side. Have a look at the run that Gosley's got as well. This is some fantastic racing from the Audi guys. The Nissans have gone a little bit more casual. The last time we had these in the major series, we had a lot more action from the Nissans, and the Audis went a little bit quiet at the start. They've role reversed for the start of this one.
Yeah, certainly. These guys putting on a great show for us at the moment. This is a 6-car train that we've got here. Fantastic to see. And Jason Martin up at the front of it, looking maybe a bit comfortable, but one missed gear can change all of that on a corner exit. Have a look at the run that Stevens had. Goodness me. Stevens actually running a little bit wide in the hairpin. Good run out of it, but that was a bit close for comfort.
Stevens looked pretty strong there, but here comes. Have a look at Matthew Clote with that
Whoa,
big, huge
whoa.
late dive, and have a look at who's come in to join these guys. That's Sam Sutton, our race leader, getting into this big, messy pack. We said it wouldn't be too far away, but Sam Sutton's got to be really careful getting himself through these cars, trying to work out. There's almost contact between Clote and Sutton.
Oh, got to be careful there on exit through that very twisty section. Sutton going around the outside here at Gendebien. My goodness, and that is the speed difference right there between the Nissan and the Audi. So much more speed from the GTP cars. Altogether though, yeah, it's looking pretty clean actually.
Yeah,
very impressive to see how those guys have given each other the room they've needed.
I'm surprised that Sutton didn't make contact into Clote there, because Clote hit that curb and just couldn't really control the car. He just sort of went wherever it went, and Sutton did a great job to not get contact into the rear. So Sutton 2.1 second lead over Corey Ott as he makes his way through this pack. That's a little wide, Corey, and there's contact. Oh, Trent Gosley,
dear.
I don't even think realising he's got a little bit of damage to the car there. That could hurt Trent Gosley.
Yeah, certainly that is not optimal for those guys. He's running a little bit wide as Gosley had to get on the brakes past the apex. More Nissans there. That's Dean Moll, your third place runner.
Oh, contact again.
A little bit of contact there. I think Gosley wasn't quite expecting him to be there. Maybe lost a bit of spatial awareness in the midst of all that stress. And Gosley with more issues running off the circuit there.
Cameron Dance in this while this is going on as Gosley. Oh, Gosley's around.
Careful! Careful, guys! Can Gosley hold on to it? Across the circuit he goes! Oh, my goodness! Very well avoided from everyone, and Gosley, I think, did a sterling job to try and recover that car. There's another car off, John King with problems. Now, this is something that happens in just about every multi-class endurance race. Atchison and Northway with issues.
Yeah, Northway actually had to slow down because of that big incident there, and has lost 2 spots in regards to that. So him getting out of the way and avoiding Trent Gosley has then resulted in him losing 2 spots and dropping behind Atchison and Anderson. So interesting too, I was just looking at the timing sheets. Last lap by Cameron Dance 5 seconds quicker than Sam Sutton. Dance is on a charge.
Yeah, my goodness. And whoa, Matthew Clote, I think with a couple of issues there as Northway and the rest come through. Anderson has managed to break away from these guys here. And I was going to say, this is the kind of thing that happens in just about every endurance race. Once the classes come together for the first time, it flips the entire race on its head, and you see battles emerge that wouldn't have before. Northway on Atchison, I'm noticing, into Sunset Bend. So Northway back in front.
And Dean Moll's slow as well. You can see him, he's just ahead. He's lost all momentum. Anderson has already gone through, and have a look at the gap that he's already pulled. So Dean Moll is in a bit of trouble here.
Yeah, he certainly is. Got a bit of front right damage as well as he makes his way past Jason Martin there. They're only 10 laps in. Hasn't taken long for the classes to catch each other for sure.
It's incredibly close how quick these classes have come together. It's around about 15 seconds a lap difference in pace, so no surprise that they've come together as quick as they have in one aspect, but at the same time, I thought that the field might have settled themselves out a little bit before they'd come together, as Jason Martin now has Daniel Stevens very, very late under brakes, almost makes contact.
Oh, that's not good on the exit. That's a very suboptimal exit for Jason Martin. So now he's facing a lot of pressure from, I believe that's Bowen behind him as Dance comes through.
Oh!
Oh no, oh no, no, bad, very bad.
Well
That's
held.
Not worked out well for Arturo Amro, yes. Very well held, have to say.
Now he's got Trevor Mack and Daryl Hockey going to try and get their way through. Daryl Hockey subbing in for the MFR group this weekend. Big contingent of drivers, the MFR this weekend.
Yes, indeed. Very large amount of drivers making their way into this one, having a bit of fun. Amro facing pressure from Trevor Mack as he tries to make his way past Bowen and Martin. These guys extremely close down the straight. Get the feeling Mack might be able to have a go at him here.
The only issue, I think he would have had a go if it wasn't for those Audis that were right there too, as Martin is going to feel pressure from Bowen at the same time. Amro and Mack are going to stay in their current positions for now, and so will the Audis. We're 10 laps in our Nissan class, which, tell you what, 10 laps have flown by.
Yeah, for sure.
Aitchison's just lost another spot, and that is to Cameron Dance.
Yes, indeed. So Dance actually doing a good job of making his way up the field here, setting some fantastic lap times. Very frantic running from Cam Dance, and I think this is very telling about Dance's race so far. Doesn't look like he has a single scratch on that car.
Yeah, it usually is one that doesn't qualify well. They're just seeing a car stopped on the circuit. Matthew Cloak.
Oh.
That's between turns 2 and 3 there. He's off actually in the shortcut that joins the club circuit. So he was well and truly off the circuit. He's dropped all the way back to 11th position now.
Lost it under brakes. That's what happened to him. He spun around a couple of times.
Very easy to do. Go back to Jason Martin and Shane Bowen, because these guys are still the closest battle out on track at the moment.
Indeed they are. Amro and Mack pretty close as well in the midst of all of this. These guys fighting very hard, going past traffic. That's Brett Gerards. And oh my goodness, Trevor Mack. He's going to have to wait a little bit to try and get by Gerards here.
Good awareness from Gerards to not have or make contact there. And have a look at the gap. Gerards up to Ashley Lear. 12.5 seconds. How quick did that stretch out that big?
That's amazing. Amazing pace from Lear. He seems to be in very little trouble here. Aitchison just made his way past Lear there. The mixing between the classes. But Lear's looking pretty much in control of this one.
Bowen just got through on Jason Martin in the run up to the final corner, up to Sunset Bend. So now into position 4, and we have got our first, we've got 3 retirements in this race now already. Riley Curtis is out, as well as Craig Hawkins and Drew Lalonde. They're all looking like they are out of the race, unfortunately, which is a bit sad to see at this early stage of the race.
Yes, indeed. That's 1 Nissan and 2 Audis out of the race so far. Bit of a shame, but that is the way of it sometimes. Tough cars, tough track, tough format as well. And that's the battle between Bowen and Martin, spread out a bit more by another Nissan.
Oh, Amro's just lost the spot to Trevor Mack.
Okay, that's interesting, because Mack actually didn't have a good run on the last lap. These guys can't seem to leave each other alone. And that's a really good view from the back end of Trevor Mack's car. As Amro,
that's Cameron Dance off the track.
Oh no, yeah,
that's your commentator's curse there. Reese, you said he did have a scratch on the car. That's yours, you can claim that one. 1 to Reese.
Well, he still doesn't have a scratch on the car.
Well, he might on the under tray, but he had no visible scratches. In saying that, the way he's bouncing it off the curbs there, that is so aggressive. In the bumps at this track are very severe as it is anyways. James Robbie is around as well. The concentration levels now starting to drop. They're starting to get into a rhythm, which can actually be the worst thing sometimes, because you start to think, oh, I'm doing okay, I'm doing easy. This isn't as hard as I was doing in practice. That's when mistakes start to come out. So all these drivers will start to have to click the concentration levels up an extra level, because they will start to feel pressure and start to make some mistakes as well.
Well, this is the thing about Sebring. And I've done plenty of practice for the 12-hour, upcoming 12-hour of the last week, and the one thing that I have noticed about this track is it is impossible to be consistent around here. You cannot enter every corner the same way lap after lap. It's going to be different every single time, so you need to be on your toes. You need to be constantly on the lookout for mistakes. If you start doing what you do on a smoother or more open circuit, get into a rhythm, sit back, just put yourself on autopilot, it's not going to work out well for you, because this track has bumps that pop up in very weird places, and it has lines through turns that change lap after lap after lap.
Yeah, 100%.
Difficult place.
Yeah, it's a really bizarre track. Just think Trevor Mack is off the circuit as well.
Oh no.
Oh, he's facing
That's
the wrong
bad.
way.
Yeah, that's just coming out of the hairpin, I believe, so not optimal for him.
Oh, dance around
Anderson.
again.
Oh no, Dance with more problems.
Wow.
What's happened to him this time? That's in the same spot as the previous lap.
Wow.
It looks like he just got a bit of oversteer and tried to recover it, but overcorrected.
Now, apologies again for not being able to show a replay. At the moment, I've got some tech issues on this broadcast PC, so we're not able to give replays today. Which is actually quite difficult to work out what's going on sometimes, so our apologies for that. We'll have that sorted for our next broadcast.
Certainly will. But the battle for third place in the Nissans between Radar Andresen and Dean Moll is spread out a little bit. These guys were very close when we last looked at them, but seems Moll has had an issue.
I think just had a little bit of traffic on that previous lap, just got caught out at the wrong spot at the wrong time. As
Having said that, yeah, bad exit for Andresen. Yeah, he didn't even get on the throttle coming out of that previous turn. I think just getting over the curb and a little afraid of getting too hard on the throttle lest he spins. So that's brought Moll right back into it. Tell Andresen definitely has the traction down out of the hairpin though.
Yeah, 100%. He looks really strong on corner exit most of the circuit. Just that one mistake, but that was enough for Dean Moll to close a full second up. Sam Sutton at the front of the field. The pace that he's got at the moment is incredible. He's only 2/10 off his fastest lap. We're 13 laps into this stint. On his 13th lap, he did a 1:49.0. His best lap of the race, a 1:48.8. So the pace is really good there at the moment for Sam Sutton at the front of the field.
Yeah, certainly is. So we've got two runaway leaders in both of our classes here at the moment. Sam Sutton in the Nissans, Ash Lear in the Audis. I'll tell you what, one driver who's had a very consistent run so far, one of the most consistent in the entire field, despite the damage he's carrying at the moment. Oh dear.
Who was that? That was Scott Kukas having some issues. Almost made contact.
Wow.
Into Shane Bowen.
Yeah, that's
Jason Martin had to get out of the
optimal.
throttle.
Yeah, that's broken them up a little bit. Scott Kukas is currently not, I believe, not on the same
one lap down
as those guys, so not the best circumstances for him. John King and Jonathan Ben. King, another one of the more consistent drivers here today.
We cast our mind back to 12 months ago when we had the classic Daytona 2.4. King did a great job there in the Audi last year as well. So this is a car that is very, very consistent. If you look at his lap times after the race, they'll be all very, very similar. So King will be very, very hard to pass. He'll be very, very hard to discount from being right up the pointy end at the end of this race, just based on his consistency alone. We've got a battle on track here. This is for some of the lower places in our Nissan field. These two guys both had a little bit of trouble throughout the race. James Robbie getting a bit of a recovery drive, and Dave Douglas also having some issues as well.
Yes, indeed, and they'll be looking to recover from that. This race is nearly a quarter done, so the time is rapidly starting to run out for these guys to make something of this race if they have made a mistake.
2-hour race, when you say it is 2 hours, it feels like it's a decent length. 120 minutes still feels like it's long when you say it in that aspect, as well, as we're seeing Ben and King side by side, and Jonathan Ben gets through. And there is the car once again. Scott Kukas getting involved, and Cameron Dance also trying to come through. This is going to be a little bit messy for these cars because Trent Gosling isn't far away as well. But the race does go by fairly quick if you can get yourself in a rhythm and get out there by yourself. But if you're in a battle, it will drag on and feel like it's going on forever.
Yeah, certainly. Oh, goodness me, that's not optimal there for King, running a bit wide. Brought him back into the clutches of Gosling. That hairpin at Sebring is one of those places that I'm talking about when I say that it's impossible to be consistent here, because the approach to that hairpin is different every single time. Same with that turn, as Trent Gosling has just found out. Those bumps on the exit, they cannot affect your car in the same way 2 laps in a row.
Yeah, well, not only that too, if you've got other drivers that have run off the track as well, they're bringing marbles onto the circuit, so you can have to use a different line as well, different braking point. So all of these different factors can impact how it all plays out, where your braking zones become, and the evolution of the track as well, the way that the tyres or the rubber gets laid on the circuit does change the way that the corners behave as well. It's noticed Gosling cutting that corner very aggressively, may actually have a slowdown penalty from that. But it's really interesting, this track. It's such a strange circuit, but we have always seen some really, really good, intense races here, just based on the nature of the circuit. You don't know what to expect because it is such a unique track.
Yeah, certainly is, and that's a good reason for why it is so revered in the pantheon of motor racing circuits around the world. Trent Gosling gets another lap. Sorry.
So I was just going to say, we said that we had 3 DNFs. We can take that back. It's back to 1 because Riley Curtis has got back out on the track after a 4-minute pit stop. And after a 10-minute pit stop, Craig Hawkins has got himself back out there too. These are the stories that we love about these races. The guys that are willing to still push on regardless of being 7 or whatever laps down. They continue to fight and continue to push on for positions as Northway in for what could be his first scheduled pit stop.
Yes, indeed, and you're 100% right, Jay. This series bringing out those people who will absolutely do their utmost to get to the flag at the finish. Awesome to see. And that's a move. I don't know if that's for position or not. Dean Mole.
So Dean Mole and Attrition have got a little bit closer over the last couple of laps too. That gap stretched out a little bit to nearly 2 seconds, but it's closed back up again, but I think traffic might stretch it once more.
Yes, indeed. They got 2 Audis between them here, and Mole has gotten a bit balked behind Scott Kukas there. Of course, no fault of either driver. That's just the way the class system ends up working out. So Anderson, he's had a pretty consistent race so far, I have to say. Same with Corey Ott. Those guys have managed to more or less maintain their positions throughout the vast majority of the race, which is pretty good to see.
Yeah, they're just lapping around nice and consistent. The pace from Ott and Sutton have both dropped off a little bit, but I'm going to guess that'll be a little bit of traffic. But they've just caught at the wrong spot. Actually a little bit of damage on the front right of Corey Ott's car. That front wing, not too much damage. Looks okay, but it's not 100% perfect straight out of the shop.
Nah, certainly not.
John King and Trent Gosling getting very, very close. Gosling with a bit of a recovery drive. We know that he's had very, very good pace in this race, but the consistency has just not been there.
Yeah, certainly. He's been having a few issues, has King, in the last few laps, and this guy right behind him, Trent Gosling, he's been in the wars a little bit as well.
Yeah, look at the front of that car. That front fender over the left-hand front wheel is absolutely crooked, bent, all sorts of different directions. Of course, this sheet metal on these cars, so that could actually be rubbing on the tyre, could cause the tyre to have some issues coming up to the pit stops. Could impact the way that the car behaves. That could be actually why he's having some issues. It could also have a little bit of steering damage from that as well. Of course, that made contact with a couple of cars down the front straight.
Yes, indeed. And that's obviously not what you would want to have happen, especially considering it's still a fair few laps to go until your first pit stop, so you have to deal with that damage for quite some time out there. And while this is happening, just a little bit of history for everybody who's not familiar with these cars and the history of IMSA, GTO and GTP racing. The Audi and the Nissan were only ever on track at the same time once in 1989, and that was at the Road America 500-mile race. All through the rest of the season, Audi did not elect to show up at the Daytona 24 or the Sebring 12 hour, which is the main reason they didn't win the championship that year. They missed those races where all the cars were on the grid at the same time. And for the rest of the season, they only really stuck to the races that were GTO only, because remember, at races other than those big enduros, IMSA elected to run these cars in separate races most of the time.
Well, that's interesting. I did not know that. Bizarre to think that the two cars with so much history from the same era rarely raced on the track together, only once. So I did not know that. So it's interesting race.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, you know, taking those deep dives into racing history and understanding more about these cars really increases your knowledge and understanding. And I suppose your perspective on the context that these cars raced in. I know I'm getting a bit literary when I say that, but it's really awesome to look back on the era that these cars raced in and understand the reasons why things happened the way they did. It really helps to explain and improve your racing ability in these cars in the sim.
Well, one thing about it too, it just shows that politics in racing and motorsport have been around for a lot longer than we think. We think it's fairly new that there's been a lot of politics around who does what and what things happen in racing, but they've been around for years and years and years. So the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I've always had a bit of a disdain for the rose-tinted spectacles effect. Some things never change in racing.
Just noticing Dean Moll's car has a fair bit of damage to that front right-hand wheel. Maybe why his pace has dropped off in regards to consistency. Robert Northway's pit stop as well, 23 seconds. We'll need to keep an eye on that when the rest of the field come into pit in probably another 8 or 9 laps in the Nissan class.
Yes, indeed. And Moll has been carrying that damage for quite some time on that car, so not quite sure how it may be affecting him. The car is still going okay. I presume, like most races in this series, they do have a spare car that they can hop into if they like.
Yeah, 100%. There is a spare car available, so probably what we're seeing Riley Curtis and also Craig Hawkins back out there in after their very, very long pit stops. The front of the Nissan field, the gap now 8 seconds. The front of the Audi field, look at this gap, Ashley to Brett Gerard's, 20 seconds.
Wow. Come on, man, slow down. This race isn't even 40 minutes old. That's some crazy pace from Ashley and crazy consistency as well.
Lear's fastest lap of the race, a 2:01.7. The next fastest lap from any other driver is from Daniel Stevens, 2:02.4. So his fastest lap is 7/10 faster than anyone else in the field. It's, Shane Bowen and the 81 of Aitchison there almost coming together. That was very, very close to contact.
Yeah, and that section of the circuit is very difficult in multi-class racing because you never quite know which line the car in front of you is going to take going into Tower Turn. Fun fact about that section of the course, it's actually a section of the classic Sebring layout run in reverse. That used to be where the S's were before going into the Big Bend, the long right-hander towards the hairpin. Bit of a track alteration fact for you there.
Been like you're working on your Bert Scott's fact file videos without it. There's a live fact file. Is that Trent Gossley starting to close back up on Jonathan Ben. John King's absolutely broken away from these two. These two have Ben and Gossley not had the smoothest race there. You can see King up ahead, and these two side by side down the straight, and Ben gets out of it, seeing that there is a Nissan of Trevor Mack coming through. He's going to go the long way around.
Yeah, certainly. Both of those guys continuing to stay out of the pits there. Trevor Mack, he's another driver that's been in the wars in this in a constant battle with Arturo Amro, and then losing a lot of time. He's on his way back up as he goes to... Oh, goodness me, that's not optimal. Bit of an understatement there. That is the opposite of optimal for John King and Trevor Mack, and there's some heavy damage on the back of King's Audi now. Back end in the air, my goodness, what happened there?
That was a bizarre incident. You can see the damage on the back of that car. Oh, wow. That was a huge impact too. That was such a bizarre crash, and uncharacteristic from two guys that have consistently been really, really smooth and clean drivers throughout this series. That was a bizarre impact, that one.
Look, it's a difficult section of track there coming up to the slow section, because the track kinks to the right in that section. If you want to try and pass someone there, you've got to be careful that you don't follow the kink too normally, I suppose you could say.
Aggressive.
Mack, I think, went a little bit too far to the right in the braking zone.
Yep. It's a bit unfortunate. I know that there would have been absolutely no intent there. As I said, these two guys have been two of the more consistent and cleanest drivers that we've had in this series so far. As just seeing Scott
respectful
Kukas.
Too.
Yeah, 100%. Scott Kukas is in the pits to get his first pit stop out of the way. The drivers that know that they will not make it on fuel in the Audi class could possibly come in now and then break it up into two even pit stops at around the 40-minute mark. So that could be what some drivers are going to do. We may see a few more pit stops in the Nissan. I only seen one pit stop from Robert Northway, and I believe that was also to get a spare car. As you can just see, Northway's just now with Trevor Mack as he fights with a little bit of damage on the front of that car.
Yes, indeed. So this is going to be an interesting battle when it develops, because yes, Mack with heavy damage on the front of that car, Northway carrying no such damage. Of course, Northway, he's been up and down in terms of position, but the one thing that he can say is that his car does not have visible damage on it, as we see Daryl Hockey jumping into the pits there. So the second of the Nissans to jump in.
Yep, right on the 40-minute mark, he jumps into the pits, so no real surprises. Who's that's doing some lawn mowing there? That's, is that Kukas? Yes, it is.
I think it might be, yes. Scott Kukas having a pretty rough time there at the moment.
The concrete is a little bit faster and a little bit easier to drive than the grass, Scott. Yep, he's worked it out now.
Of course, the Audi may have all four wheels powered, but it's not exactly an off-road machine. Those tyres don't have much rough tread on them.
No, not like an all-wheel drive rally car where you can throw it in the grass and it doesn't mind it. These definitely do not behave very well in the dirt. Just noticing we've got another car in the pits. This is probably a little surprising. Attrition in the pits.
Yeah, that is interesting. Not quite sure what's going on there. That's it seems rather early for drivers that are running pretty high in the Nissans. Well, we'll have to keep an eye on the pit stop times. Speaking of pit stop times, Daryl Hockey's stop time was 40.8 seconds, so I don't think that was a planned stop.
No, I think you're right. That might be a very, very long stop. We'll see how Attrition goes. Have a look at Northway here, weaving to try and get this move done on Trevor Mack, and he will. Mack gives up the position quite easily in the end. Attrition could be just thinking, well, I know that I've got to pit twice. Why not break it up evenly, get fresh tyres for each stint, and you know what your car's going to do. So that could be why he's come in at that point. We'll see if that's how it's going to play out. Mack almost runs into the rear of Northway. I think Trevor Mack is a little rattled after that incident with John King earlier.
I would be too. And in a car like the
Nissan,
in a car like the Nissan, you make a mistake and it sticks with you for a very long time. The car runs on such a knife edge.
Well,
being a powerful sports prototype.
The thing too is that it's probably one of the nicest guys in the field, so probably feeling absolutely horrible about that fact as well. So I know Trevor Mack will not be too happy with how that played out. James Robbie has jumped into the pits. Daniel Aitchison just he's got another car for company. This is Cameron Dance in his recovery drive through the field. Cam Dance is the fastest car on track at the moment.
Yep, he certainly is, and he's looking very good at the moment. One driver that isn't looking good at the moment is Robert Northway. I think you might have missed it, Jay, but I saw him make a mistake out of the hairpin, and he now has damage on the front of that car.
That's 2 for 2 for you, Reese. Commentator's curse.
Oh, man, I'm so sorry, guys.
It's alright, at least we know the curse working strong. Dean Mollers coming to the pits. So it actually is a skill to have the commentator's curse as good as what Reese and I have gathered and worked up over the years.
Yes,
I don't know if it's a good
We've had
skill,
lot
but
of
it is
time
a
to
skill.
practice.
We have. Here comes Dance.
And this should be a move into turn one. It's difficult to defend at those speeds and at that turn. That's a car coming out of the pits right there as well.
Oh, no!
Right in the middle of it all. Oh, careful, guys. Goodness me.
Aitchison almost ended up in the fence there. I think that's, is that James Robbie coming out of the pits? I believe so.
I think so.
And
Yeah.
Robbie as well, 40-second pit stop. So I think that 40-second stop from Daryl Hockey is about right because Attrition was a 38-second stop. So I think that stop for Hockey might be okay.
It's odd because I'm taking a look at the timing, and Northway has already been through the pits once with
come in
a
early.
21-second stop. So I'm not quite sure what that was for.
Maybe he's doing reverse engineered the race and doing his short stint at the start of the race to get maybe some damage fixed as well. Going to do the 2 longer stints now, 50-minute stints to get it home. That could be what he's done. Maybe had enough damage that he thought, well, I'll come in early, get a fresh car, get back out there and do 2 50-minute stints to finish the race off. That could be the only thing I'm thinking.
Yeah, Trevor Mack, meanwhile, is the next of the Nissans to come in, and he's
surprise.
currently stationary in the lane. Got a bit of damage to fix on that one, which it seems he has done. Brett Gerard's looking very comfortable there in second place in the Audis, and his teammate Matt Clote there in ninth. King is still out there circulating, and
That back of that
seems
car
that,
looks horrible, doesn't it?
yeah, it does. Doesn't seem to have affected the pace all that much. He's still managing to keep it on the track, still setting lap times, which is good to see.
His pace is still okay, but yeah, definitely wouldn't be happy with how that's played out. He'd be very, very disappointed, and I'm sure that he and Trevor Mack will have a little bit of a chat after a post-race. And probably tomorrow they'll have a little bit of a laugh about it, but right now they'll both be very, very heated about how that's played out. There's actually a little bit more damage to King's car than what I thought, probably from hitting the tyre bundle there as well. 'Cause
Yeah.
that front wheel doesn't look too healthy either.
Nah, certainly not.
Oh,
and
goodness.
that's one way to overtake someone, I guess.
Kukas has not had a great run in this race so far. He's really not comfortable with the car. Can't even get it in gear to get it going again. So he'll be looking forward for this race to end and for us to head to Bristol for the next round.
Yes,
A few weeks'
indeed.
time. It's going to be a good fun race in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, looking forward to that for sure. Meanwhile, yeah, there is a trend there with the Nissan pit stops. They're all around the 40-second mark if they're going for a full service. So obviously, my initial assessment of pit stop times was wrong, and I do apologise for that. Looks like we're going to be seeing that kind of stop time for most of the field.
Interesting that most of the Audis have, well, actually all of the Audis except for those couple that have come in for damage, have stayed out at this point. So they're probably going to either go try and save fuel and get it home all the way to the end, or they will just go for the splash and dash at the end of the race with maybe 8 or 10 minutes to go. So, moment Lear, have a look at the gap. He's nearly out to a 30-second lead. 28-second lead. That's incredible.
Well, you did say 27 laps to a tank, yes, for the Audis?
Around about, the info I've been told, around 27 per tank. Let me reread my notes.
So with those numbers, let's just do a bit of mental maths here. We're currently about 13 minutes to the hour mark. A lap around Sebring takes just over 2 minutes in the Audis. If they want to get to the hour mark, they have to get another 7 laps or so out of those cars.
Which
Yeah,
makes
that's
it
not going to happen.
29 laps to a tank, so they've got to save
Not
2
gonna
laps of
happen.
fuel each stint. I think we're going to see a splash and dash, unless some guys are very, very good on fuel. But I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing Lear just drive off down the road. He's wanting to get enough of a gap so that if he does have to splash and dash, and Brett Gerard's his fuel saving, he's still got enough time to be able to make that splash and dash work.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Which would be an interesting strategy to see play out towards the end. So we're nearly at the halfway point of this race now. Whoa, Robert Northway. It's a shame we can't do replays because I would have loved to see that moment again on the broadcast. He just scythed up in between Ash Lear and Ryan DeCartier McCarthy on the entry to turn 1. Pretty scintillating.
My apologies for the issues we're having. I feel really bad that we can't show a replay, so it's very disappointing as we see our leader in the pits.
In. Yes, indeed. And Otters followed him in as well. So Nissan top 2 in. Looks like they are going to be taking 2 stops here, as per usual, as we expected.
So when Dance comes in, probably be this lap as well. Means we're getting 26 laps to a tank in the Nissan, which is around about what we were expecting. We got told maybe 27. Interesting, the track temp when we started the race was about 34, 35 degrees. Now 42 degrees, so it is very, very hot out there.
Jump.
The concrete out there, the cement is very, very warm. Might be playing backyard cricket out on that cement today, would you?
No way. Might at the least.
I don't think it would have ever had. That would be one thing I doubt the Sebring concrete would have ever had on it. Is that a game of backyard cricket?
Yeah, certainly. I mean,
our American viewers are probably like, "What is cricket?
Yeah.
And what is backyard cricket?"
Is cricket like baseball? Kind of is. You hit a ball with a bat, and that's about the only similarity.
And you score runs, and there's innings.
I don't understand the rules of cricket, man. I honestly, I'm not big into ball sports anyway, but cricket just perplexes me.
We're going to have a conversation post-race, Reese.
Yes, we will.
I'm a cricket tragic, which is
I do have a couple of mates. I do have a couple of mates over here who have offered to explain cricket to me over a coffee. I might have to take him up on that offer.
We're also seeing Atchison come into it. I've only got about 5 or 6 of our Nissan field to come in. Amazing that we've turned this into a cricket and sport conversation. Just from concrete. That's amazing.
Going off on weird tangents is the Sim Speedway.
It is the Sim Speedway, especially when it's extremely hot. You feel a little bit delusional from the heat as Rory Boyd comes into the pits. Another driver that we've seen throughout this series be very, very consistent is Boyd.
Yes, indeed.
Rory got himself in a bit of traffic coming out of his pit stop with Amro just ahead. Has not pitted yet.
Yeah, so Arturo going very long compared to the other Nissan drivers. Might expect him in this lap, but we'll see how long he can carry it.
We could be one of these ones that are saving a bit of fuel. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to do it on one stop. Have a look at the pace advantage that Corey Otten has got here.
Right.
Amro, where are you going, buddy?
Yeah, the track doesn't go there, mate. What's going on? Maybe he's trying to say something to the people who run Sebring. This is where the track should go, everybody. There we go. I think
what he was doing was adjusting his settings to make sure that he had everything set up perfectly for his pit stop as Dance is also in. I feel that he was concentrating on making sure he had everything ticked correctly to get his tyres done and everything like that. So just made a mistake while he was concentrating on that stuff. Jonathan Ben and John King, guess what? They're coming back together.
Oh, there we go. The battle begins anew. And, of course, Ben having to go wide there to let that Nissan through has really brought King back into contention. As we take a look at this battle, I want to point something out. Taking a look at the stop times, Sutton and Ott, their stops were 7 seconds longer than most of the other Nissan drivers.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised that they've used more fuel than other drivers. Considering, too, they also went an extra 10 minutes from those other drivers as well. So that would sort of make sense looking at, say, 40 seconds for a 40-minute stint. So 1 second a minute of fuel. Sutton came in at about 48 minutes of racing and did a 47-second stop. So that would sort of make sense, I guess.
Yeah, all right. True. Of course, another typically sim speed thing is us forgetting basic things and going off on tangents based on that.
Also being unable to math as well is another sim speed thing.
and unable to English.
Yeah, it's very, very true at that. We're very useless at that, but I think that's just more an Australian thing than a SimSpeed thing.
Oh, I tend to speak fairly well when I'm not commentating.
I probably do too.
You
So
do.
Jason Martin and Alexander Sheridan also come together as Ben and King have split apart. We're also now seeing our first pit stops in the Audi class. Trent Gostley is the first to jump. I'm going to say there's no real surprise there because that car has not looked healthy in the last little while.
Nah, he's going to get that thing prepared, or repaired, I should probably say. There I go again.
Both.
Trent Gostley, one of the guys that's had a bit of a rough time here today. These two, Jason Martin and Alexander Sheridan. Sheridan has been one of the drivers that's been there or thereabouts the whole race, remember. He was at the back of that 6-car train earlier that formed just off the start. He has managed to stay very consistent, and he's managed to put himself up into 6th place as a result. I say look out for him in the second hour.
I also say watch these two as probably the favourites for the championship as well. These two are real contenders in this championship. Jason Martin, the best, without doubt, the best oval driver we have in AusNZ. So he will look to take advantage of those races, but he's really punching above what he says is his weight in the road side of things. He's performed really, really well in the road races at the end of last season and the start of this season. But here comes Sheridan. Sheridan has just been so consistent throughout this series, had so many great finishes last season. He'll be looking to take advantage of that performance into this year as he makes the move. Martin's going to come back here.
And that's the wonderful thing about this modern configuration of Sunset Bend is there's multiple lines possible. If someone passes you on entry, you can always try and get them in the mid-corner. And look at Martin's run down the straight. That is immense from him. What has Martin done to that car?
He must have a separate turbo boost.
That's not the first time I've seen him have a really good run down the straight. Oh, that's the problem for Clote.
Yep, that is not ideal for Matthew Clote as he gets it going again. Not the first time we've seen that MFR car off the track, unfortunately, but another driver that will do very, very well when we come up to the oval races. Next race, obviously, as we said earlier, another oval race as we head to Bristol. So, Clote and Martin will be two of the favourites in that race. As Martin trying to come back here on Alexander Sheridan. This is going to be an intense battle. As Martin missed a gear there. Very easy to do as you're coming out of the corner and miss a gear.
That's a real shame for him. So Sheridan's starting to drive away from him now. And Sheridan, another one of those guys that has a very clean car. That's very important.
Yep, 100%. We're not too sure on how long it will be until the pit stops start for these cars. Have a look at this pack around Jason Martin, though. He's got cars everywhere. Who have we got here? Daryl Hockey and James Robbie. Yeah.
Yeah, goodness
These
me. These guys
really quickly.
Yeah, they certainly have, and it's a very awkward part of the track to come up to traffic as well, through those flat-out kinks.
Oh!
Doesn't how he stopped on the inside. Trying to Cartier McCarthy. Take care, guys. So,
oh, no, they're going to go 3 wide here.
Oh, no. Oh, please don't, guys. The Nissans are pretty quick. Hockey just slits in behind Robbie. Smart thing to do, I think, getting past the Audi, and he'll have to wait until the next sequence of corners to try and make a move, but that's very wide from Robbie on the exit. Just a bit off the racing line into the marbles. That's not going to give him a good run down the straight.
Have a look who's in the background too, Reese. Sam Sutton coming around to lap these guys, so we can see all 3 cars here go together. If Robbie and Hockey don't pay attention to the extra cars that they have coming up behind them, they probably won't be noticing the other cars coming up behind, so this could be real dangerous for Sam Sutton here, especially while they're going to battle themselves with traffic and have the leader come on through as well. Watch out for Sam Sutton here. Needs to make this very, very clean and safe.
Yeah, certainly. These guys making their way past Shane Bowen at the moment, and this is one of the things about multi-class racing that isn't always considered. Have a look at Sutton, how much he gains in the braking zone. Blue flags in multi-class racing. You see right there as Sutton is let go by Daryl Hockey.
Good job from Daryl Hockey there.
Yes, indeed. Fact of the matter is, when you're racing and you're trying to go through a slower class, the blue flags don't really matter that much. Blue flags are more advisory than anything else in multi-class racing. Just saying, hey, you got a car behind you, look out for them in a couple of seconds. There's no obligation for you to let them go at the soonest possible moment as Daniel Stevens comes out of the pits. But when you're racing cars in the same class as you, and there's a faster car in the same class as you coming up on you, that certainly, there's a bit more of an obligation to let them go, I'd say.
Good job from Sam Sutton to get through. Well done from both James Robbie and Daryl Hockey for letting Sutton through very, very cleanly. They've managed to get through, and have a look at the gap that they've rejoined at. It's pretty much the same as when Sutton got in there in the first place.
That's amazing to see, and that's poetry in motion, just about. Very cool to see. More Audis coming into the pits. Brett Gerards, I'm just noticing, has just come in there.
And interesting, Gerards is in. We just saw Daniel Stevens in. Ash Lear is going an extra lap. This is the 29th lap in this stint. How many laps do we say they need to do to make it with one stop? 29.
So Daniel Stevens has done an incredibly good job to extend the tank as much as he has. In fact,
he's got the gap now that with Gerards in, the gap between he and Shane Bowen, 41 seconds.
I struggle to understand how that's even possible. I mean, Lear obviously has a handle on this car like no one else in the field.
When the car first got released, who was that running off the circuit there?
Interesting.
One of the Kinetic cars, I believe. Craig Hawkins, who we haven't seen in this race too much. He was, of course, in the pits for a very long time. He's come in and made his second pit stop, but he looks like he's really struggling with that car. Oh, wow, that was close for Corey Hott.
Easy, easy. Yeah, so Hawkins, I think, having a slow tour around the track, just getting his bearings.
Struggling.
It can be a very...
Oh, Robbie.
Dear,
wow.
oh dear.
Did you see the way he bounced it over the curb?
Yeah, and that's not quite the best environment for the Nissan. It's got very stiff suspension, very low suspension, and its entire performance is dictated by how level the car is in the corners. So around a track like Sebring, with those big curves, you don't want to be using them too much. Robbie's evidently making it work for him, though.
Yeah, I'm surprised that he's making it work as well as he is, too, because, as you said, they don't really like to bounce around that much. They're more suited to keeping it as flat and controlled through the corners as they can, to use that aero that it looks really spaceship-like, but there's nowhere near as much aero as it looks.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Lee's got another lap. This is his 30th lap in the stint. That's incredible.
Okay. Well,
I hope he's remembered that he does have to stop.
Yeah, I mean, every time that I've looked at him in the sim on my end as Northway comes in, every time I've looked at Lear, excuse me, every time I've looked at him, he's been driving very conservatively. So...
Incredible that the pace he's got, considering how conservative he's been.
Well, maybe that's the way to be fast in the Audi.
Oh,
you just got to drive it conservatively. Yeah, don't overdrive it, because remember, it's not... Usually, with most race cars that are two-wheel drive, you have one set of tyres that wears faster than the other. But the Audi, it's a little bit different. If you drive conservatively, if you maintain the amount of tread on those tyres, you could probably get a massive advantage.
Yeah, 100%. The big advantage that he's going to have is if those drivers are around him that have pitted early and can't make it on an extra stop, do they then take tyres as well at their splash and dash stop? Or are they going to have to double stint tyres at the end? It's going to be really, really tough to see how those guys go. The likes of Gerards and Daniel Stevens, as Gerards comes in for a second stop.
This
is interesting.
Not optimal.
That's not good for him.
And Lear's just come into the pits there behind him.
Lear's going to lap him, pretty much.
Yeah.
I wonder if Gerards has got a penalty speeding in pits or something.
He's up on the jacks.
Okay, so maybe forgot to take tyres.
Right. Gerards down. Let's see how long this stop goes for Gerards.
It's disappointing for him.
Extremely so. He was doing very well.
And Lear's gap to Bowen before he came into the pits was 50 seconds.
Yeah, right.
So
That's pretty
based on that
insane.
pace, if Alexander Sheridan just goes around the outside and passes Shane Bowen, if the pace is the same in the second stint, that could mean... Oh, is this contact coming into the pits?
Oh, Bowen, I think, caught out a bit there by Sheridan. I know Sheridan was on the brakes much earlier than Bowen was. Not quite sure what went on there.
Gratz is out with another 30-second stop. Lear out with a 47-second stop. Click the right button here. There we go.
That seems a reasonable pit stop time when you think about
Same time as Stevens
other
and
pit
Martin.
stop times. Yeah.
So based on the pace that Lear's got, he could almost lap the entire Audi field.
That's
That would be incredible.
I've got no words.
It is a legitimate possibility based on the pace that Lear's got in comparison to the Audi field, that he could lap the entire Audi field.
Certainly a possibility, but one that I never thought that we would entertain during this race. Lear,
I agree.
just absolute dominance here today. We've still got half the race still to go, still more developments to come.
Go back to a battle that we were watching towards the start of the race. It sort of stopped for a long time, but it's come back together because Dean Mole on the last lap was very, very slow. A 1 minute 58 second lap time. He's now got Attrition closing back up on him once again.
Yeah, certainly has, and just going to see what happened to Mole on that last lap. He did have a slight bit of traffic. Yes, I see what happened. Oh, actually, it was quite the incident that happened. Shane Bowen actually got hit in the rear by Mole on the last lap. Did a 360. Mad skills.
That's why we saw Bowen was a little slow when he was coming into the pits there, probably a little rattled again. Everyone in the field is now pitted. Sam Sutton leads by 10 seconds over Corey Ott. Then you've got this battle here. These guys are about 30 seconds off Sam Sutton. The lap times aren't too bad, but of course these two cars have both been involved in different incidents throughout the race. So Mole and Attrition have not had a very clean race in comparison to Sutton and Ott. James Robbie, Daryl Hockey, they split up for a little while. They've come back together again as well.
Yeah, certainly have. It's just the ebb and flow of the race as it continues on. And these guys, it's been more... They haven't been so much battling against each other outright. More, they've both been battling against the traffic, and both of them coming off in their own sorts of ways. Both of them looking reasonably clean, not much visible damage on those cars, and that is an amazing angle you can see on the Daryl Hockey's car, so close to the ground. The seams of the concrete flashing by in a single frame. That's amazing.
Yeah, very, very cool. So out across that huge painted finish line area. And looking at the lap times, the lap previous, Hockey did a 1 minute 54. James Robbie did a 1 minute 51. And that lap there, 1 minute 52 for Hockey and a 155 for James Robbie. So these guys are just ebbing and flowing, catching traffic at completely opposite spots. The gap between Mole and Attrition is already back out to 5 seconds. They were nose to tail only one lap ago. Now a 5 second advantage in favour of Mole.
And that's bizarre. I think both of those drivers having some kind of strange grip on the cars, as that's not optimal for Robbie, running wide in the hairpin. Doesn't seem to have lost much ground, but something that he would definitely want to avoid.
Love this shot looking over the rear wing. You can see the heat of the exhaust coming out of the car. Flames coming out under brakes with the backfiring of the vehicle as well. It's an incredible car, this one.
Love that heat shimmer. That's amazing.
Great shot to see the heat, the exhaust working so hard as Attrition. Uh-oh. Have a look at the damage to the back of that car. He has gone around and has been in the wall.
He
No doubt
certainly
about it.
has. Yep, and he did it on the exit of the hairpin. That's a real shame. Just engaging second gear, I think, off the exit of the hairpin, and the rear spun up and around he went.
Battle for the podium in our Audi class. Shane Bowen now back out in a spare car, regrouped and regathered, ready to try and get this move done on Daniel Stevens, currently in second position. See if he can do it.
Yeah, well, with an exit that wide from the last turn, it's not going to help Bowen all that much. But he has shown that he has the pace to get this done. And on board with these guys. Another awesome angle, so you can see what it takes to drive these things around a track like Sebring.
Oh, mistake from both of them.
Yeah, a little bit wide at that turn.
They both missed the apex. I think Bowen was following Stevens. Stevens was able to regather it in the second phase of braking, and Bowen just missed it altogether. He lost all of that ground that he had gained up. Last lap by 2:04.3 for Bowen, 2:04.7 for Stevens. They're lapping very, very consistent, but Lear at the front of this field, 2:03.3. 1.4 second advantage in favour of Lear over Stevens. Last lap by, that gap is now 42.1 seconds.
Once again, I have
no,
no
another mistake
response
for
for
Stevens.
that. Oh no. That's brought them right back in, close to each other. The twisty northern section of the circuit coming up to Tower Turn. Quite a bit of oversteer from Daniel Stevens on that
mistake.
exit. And another one. Oh, goodness me. Maybe his braking performance is not where he wants it to be.
Then
So
Moles.
that's bad. Oh. That section of the circuit is so tight in these cars. I tell you what, Stevens, he seems to have recovered slightly, not letting Bowen go here.
I think Dean Mole coming through would have given Bowen a little bit of a heart attack there. I don't think he was expecting him to come on through. And Bowen compromised his run a little bit, and Stevens with some draft, he might be able to come on through.
Yeah, certainly. Look at that run! Up towards the end of the straight. Oh, trying to go up the inside, and is going to succeed. Bowen very wide. Oh, he's going to come back. A little bit of contact between the two. They bang wheels. This is fantastic. This is the kind of battling we like to see. Another good run from Bowen, but that shift took him a bit long. Did Daniel Stevens miss a gear there? Oh. These guys are leaving nothing on the table.
Comes Dance working his way through this field as well. Going to cut them in two. And also seeing Robert Northway has disappeared off the timing sheet, so not sure if he's having some sort of technical issue or whether he's had an incident and he's off the track. We'll try and find out in the next few moments what this has done, these two battling as well. Daniel Stevens to Ash Lear is now up to 50 seconds.
Once again, Ash Lear proving to be the best in the Audi class. These guys looking like it's going to heat up a fair bit. A little bit of a defensive thing there from Daniel Stevens. Slight bit of contact in the mid-corner.
And Robert Northway looks like he is out of the race.
Now that's a real shame. Big shame for Northway. You get a good view from that onboard shot of just how wide these cars are. Much wider than the road Audi 90 that they were based on. German family saloon transformed into a fire-breathing four-wheel drive monster.
Are these the old school big boy?
Probably. I mean, the road car version certainly wasn't, but these might be. Of course, the BMW M8 coming to iRacing in the next build.
Soon.
Looking forward to that. Yep. It'll be yeah, put it on track with the Audi. It'll be a German big boy reunion.
Imagine those racing in multi-class together.
That'd be insane.
That in the Audi, you wouldn't see any passing because no one could get past anyone else.
Yeah, certainly. They'd be wider than the racetrack.
From on a short course or something like Jefferson, you wouldn't even see any moves because it'd just be single file racing. The track's too narrow. Maybe I've just given you an idea for Max Vance next season.
Yep. I think so, yes.
The big boy reunion.
Big boy showdown. Love it.
Bowen's made a little bit of a mistake coming out of Sunset Bend and given a little bit of room to Daniel Stevens. That lap by, they pretty much matched Lear for pace. Daniel Stevens was the fastest in this group last time by with a 2:04.8. 2:05.5 for Lear, 2:05.6 for Bowen. So that's probably Lear's slowest lap in the race, 2:05.5.
Well, a little blip on the radar, but doesn't really change much about the fact that this has been a very dominant drive from him. Anderson back in the pits to repair that damage.
Yeah, I think he's got to the point where he knows that he can make it home from here. So come in and get that damage fixed, get the spare car, and go on once more. Sutton now with a 13-second lead. Only 5 cars left on the lead lap in the Nissan class, in our Audi class. The top 9 are all still on the same lap at this stage. Look at the gap though, 50 seconds between Lear and Stevens and growing. That lap by a 2:02.8 from Lear. Back down to his normal pace. Been really consistent at that pace as well.
Yeah, certainly has. And once again, it just comes down to his conservative driving. We've barely seen a single mistake from him. Most of the Audi field, we have noticed, occasionally missing gears, missing braking points, running wide. But Lear, it's like he's on a Sunday drive. Very Prost-like driving we're seeing from him at the moment. Just making sure to do enough and no more.
Yep, doesn't need to push it too far as Stevens and Bowen under brakes. Really, really close once again. Bowen closed up a huge amount under brakes there. And he's looking to make the momentum advantage. A little slide from Stevens and corner exit too. This is going to be close coming into turn 1.
Yeah, here's the draft once again. Long shift for Stevens, which brought Bowen right into contention. A little bit of a tighter line on entry. Stevens getting off the corner a little too well. Bit of oversteer. Not going to help him.
Oof.
Continuing the pressure, Bowen just a little bit wide. Have a look at the oversteer from Stevens. My goodness, he's barely keeping a handle on that thing.
Somehow he regathered that. I thought he was gone because that thing was sliding so much. Daniel Stevens doing a great job defending this position. Daniel Atchison has come in for his final stop in our Nissan field. And Amro and Mack have also got close over the last little bit. Amro actually comes into the pit, so that is why they have closed up on the timing sheets. Don't forget, we do have live timing available on our website at simspeed.tv/live timing. You can keep up to date with everything happening out on the circuit through our website as the race rolls on.
Exactly right. One of the things you can keep track of is the lap times that these guys are setting. Shane Bowen, just under 0.6 faster on the last lap, so he's definitely got the pace, but Stevens is just able to put his car in all the right places to keep him behind.
Yep, exactly right. Just doing enough at the moment to hold it. He's not doing too much. He's overdriving the car a tiny little bit, but the thing is Bowen is also overdriving the car a little bit as well, as he's trying to get the moves done. So these guys probably both need to dial it back to 10 instead of 11, and they both probably start to find themselves gather the pace a little more, probably make their fighting even more intense.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Oh,
really a race of who makes the least mistakes. Goodness me, that's Dave Douglas, 11th placed in the Nissans. Managing to make it through nice and cleanly there.
Good work getting right through the middle of them there, cutting straight through the middle.
Yeah, going over the very large bumps on the outside of Sunset Bend for good measure.
Stevens doing just enough. Last lap by Lear and Stevens, absolutely identical lap times, 2:03.9 for both of those guys, and Bowen 2:04.1, pretty much identical as well. Trevor Mack and Adrison come together out on track. Of course, Mack yet to make another stop, and Corey Ott also in this battle as well. So Ott is coming to lap Adrison, of course, yet to make his second stop. So you just see another car into the pits. That's Trent Gostley coming in to make his final stop. Probably no surprise considering he pitted early in the race to get a spare car. He had some damage from incidents earlier on in the race. With this battle between Stevens and Bowen, these guys are really, really even at the moment.
Yeah, they both seem to have settled into a bit of a rhythm, which, you know, like I said before, not exactly advantageous at Sebring, but they're managing to make it work. Bowen having to run a bit wide at tower turn. It seems Rory Boyd's having a bit of trouble getting past him here.
Boyd, I think, just missed. Oh, watch out.
Oh.
I just held my breath there for a second.
He's being a bit overly cautious, I think, is Rory, because we've seen plenty of moves where the Nissan's been able to get up the inside on the exit of tower. Seems like he's just waiting for the straight. Of course, I don't blame him. It's the patient thing to do. Has managed to work out just fine for him.
Yep, this is going to slot in behind Daniel Stevens. Use a little bit of draft and then under brakes, he'll get the move done. But here comes Bowen. Bowen is looking really strong. It almost looks like, yeah, he's forcing Stevens to use a little bit more fuel. Bowen went in the pits at the same time as Lear. Daniel Stevens pitted 3 laps earlier, so Stevens is likely to have to splash and dash. He's going to have a real tough time to get it at about 30-odd laps. There's a big slide from Stevens. So it could be what Bowen's doing here. He's just forcing Stevens to use more fuel.
And more tyres as well.
Yep.
That's another thing that we've noticed. Stevens really sliding that thing around. Bowen, yes, he's run wide quite a few times, but he's managed to keep it from sliding. Have a look at Stevens on the other hand. Kicks the rear end out on the exits. That's not going to help his acceleration later on.
No. Starting to feel that, maybe not this lap or the next lap, but in another 10 laps time, he'll be really feeling the effect of those big aggressive slides that he's been getting. And see there as well, struggled to get on the power coming out of the hairpin, and Bowen with a much better exit. I don't think he's quite close enough at this stage though.
Oh, having said that, he is having a little bit of a look there. Just staying behind once again though, and it's that constant pressure game. We talk about it all the time on these broadcasts. It's a psychological game happening at the moment here.
It's a game of chess in high-powered four-wheel drive racing cars.
From 30 years ago.
Oh geez, that makes me feel old just saying that.
Oof.
Thanks.
No worries.
It's alright. 6-year-old makes me feel old every single day. He was talking about how many years it is until he can start driving today.
Oh, goodness me.
Something's happened to Matthew Clote. Out of the race.
That is not optimal. I say that way too much. I need to fix that.
Look, we all have things that we say way too much. I also am sure that I say things way too much. Usually the wrong thing is what I say way too much. Bowen, have a look at the run, almost contact between these two guys. This is some great racing between Stevens and Bowen here.
Good mid-corner from Bowen too, just showing that he has a bit more pace in those tyres. Stevens, once again, taking a bit longer on the shifts. I think he might have auto clutch on while Bowen doesn't. That could be the reason why we've seen good runs from quite a few people. They're able to make those shifts quicker.
And that could also be why he's used more fuel. Had to pit 2-3 laps earlier.
Oh, another slide from Stevens!
Wow!
Especially in this section of the circuit. Those tyres
another one!
Are right up the mercy. That's slowed up Bowen on the exit.
Wowee. This is a great battle.
Oh, man. It just shows, like, it's not the usual kind of battle we see either. Usually, it's drivers sticking it up the inside and going for the over-under and stuff like that. But here, it's the inverse. There's people going for those big slides and stopping on the apex, and that is what's ended up putting back the attacking driver.
Well, the big thing from that as well is the awareness from Shane Bowen to not run into the rear of Daniel Stevens when he's made these big slides and big mistakes. So Bowen has driven fantastic to make sure that there's been no contact between these two cars.
Yeah, absolutely. Very clean line there out of tower turn and down towards the Le Mans section.
Interesting thing too is while these two have been battling, they've been matching Lear for pace. The last lap by is the first lap that I've noticed a huge difference in lap time. 2:02.4 for Lear. But Stevens and Bowen have been matching him for pace in the 2:03s and 2:04s pretty much for the last little while. Lear last time, well this time by, did a 2:02, so it's the first lap that he's actually had a decent advantage in pace. But they've been lapping at a very consistent rate over the last few laps, doing high 203s and low 204s, pretty much for the last 5 or 6 laps.
It's taken until the last half hour of the race for these guys to really get into a nice groove with this racing. When it has happened, turned out to be incredibly nice. They got a Nissan to contend with here. Round the outside he goes.
Wow, and another one coming through on the inside as
no.
well. That was Riley Curtis who went around the outside, coming through the inside. I'm not 100% sure who that is. It's 28 of Attrition. He comes through as Corey Ott comes into the pits to make his final pit stop.
Yes, indeed. An Ott carrying... wow, that's quite a scraped up front end on that machine from Corey Ott. Dean Mole following him in. Cameron Dance has managed to make his way up to where he's really challenging these guys for the podium.
His pace is pretty even to Dean Mole. He was closing up on Dean Mole, and the pace that he's got, he might be able to do a little bit shorter of a stop than Mole. So they could even jump him in the pit stops. It'll be pretty close. So when we see Dance come into the pits, we need to go back and look and see where he comes out in relation to Dean Mole. Those two will be very, very close. Corey Ott is away, 23-second stop for him. He's fueled up, ready to get it home. Daniel Stevens gets away from Shane Bowen as Bowen gets held up a little bit by one of our Nissans. I believe that's Trevor Mack.
Yes, indeed. Up into 6th at the moment on track. And,
Jason Martin.
Oh, no! Oh, that is very bad. Oh. Well, it's good that he's able to get going again, but it looks to me like that was just a straight-up spin, catching the grass. So it is possible to oversteer in these cars and slide off.
I think... Oh, speaking of slide,
Yikes.
Daniel Stevens, how did he manage to get that back in a straight line? He is well and truly on it. He's driving absolutely out of his skin at the moment. I'm very impressed.
He's either really confident in the handling of his car, or he's absolutely terrified.
Well, it could be both at the same time.
Yeah, true. That is possible.
I mean, that car is pretty terrifying to drive.
Yeah, it absolutely is. They got Dave Douglas coming through here. Douglas losing a position since last we checked on him. And this is quite awkward.
Oh, Stevens is trying to let him through and try not to give up too much time to Bowen, and he's given up plenty of time to Bowen.
They got 2 Nissans here. Daniel Aitchison behind Shane Bowen, just threading the needle on the outside. This is not going to work out too well for Stevens, having to get off the brakes a little early. Oh, Aitchison running a bit wide. Don't make contact, guys. Aitchison's going to have another go at that. Oh.
Well held in the end. Lucky
Yeah.
to not end up in the fence. He's going to have to watch out because he's just dragging along a
brought a traffic cone with him.
Yep, that'll be not ideal if it gets stuck under the wheel. They can actually get stuck in the car and cause a fair bit of damage to the front of the car. He's still dragging that around. It's stuck under the car. He might have to come in and pit for that. No, it's finally dislodged. They went for a bit of a trip, that cone.
Yeah, probably the fastest it's ever gone.
Corey Ott's back in for another stop. I don't think Corey Ott put enough fuel in the car. Made his 3rd pit stop. That could give up the podium spot to Cameron Dance.
Yeah, certainly could. Where is Dance at the moment? He's coming through Le Mans at the moment. So...
Coming up on that battle we've been watching between Stevens and Bowen.
Oh, yep. And Trevor Mack in the middle of all of this as well. Having an interesting time getting lapped by Dance there.
Oh, have a look at the commitment from Dance.
Yeah, goodness me.
That was full on from Dance there. I'm surprised he was able to hold it up. Stevens and Bowen, even with all of this traffic coming through, we've seen probably 4 or 5 Nissans come on past them. Still separated by less than a second. Incredible battle that these guys have had over the last half an hour. We have got another battle because Trevor Mack and Daniel Aitchison are together for position as well.
Yes, indeed. Aitchison finally getting past those 2 GTOs after the incident at the hairpin last lap. And now this is a proper battle for position against Mr. Mack. Brad Matheson could change that in that Audi. Very slow on the apex, even for an Audi. So these guys have really come together now. Could be a move for Atchison. Oh, don't move over too soon, Daniel. Easy does it, guys. Trevor Mack lets him go there at the apex. Move done. That was scary.
Was an awesome onboard there from Brad Matheson. See how close those cars were. Thought that there might have been a little bit of contact between them. There wasn't in the end, which is great to see. And Bowen and Stevens can resume their battle once more, but there's also another battle going on. These are two cars that we've seen battling throughout this race. King and Ben back together once more.
Absolutely. Battle for 7th place here. And King, getting off the throttle slightly early there, running a bit wide through turn 1. That's not going to help him. This will give the advantage to
have
Ben.
a look at Lear coming too.
Oh, yeah, he's about to lap these guys. And in the middle of all that, we've got the battle here between Roy.
Oh
no! Lear's involved in that as well. Corey Ott with some major damage on that car now. That could have put the race in jeopardy for a few people.
Sure could have. That was crazy, that incident. Looks like Lear might have got away with that one. There's not too much damage on his car. Ott, on the other hand, after just coming in to make an extra pit stop, he's just gone a lap down and got damage on that car. That was messy, to say the least.
That's a real shame after the drive that he had so far in this race. So Ott's going to have to jump back into the pits once more. Just coming up on half an hour to go here. So for that kind of thing to happen that late in the race, that must hurt.
Yep, that's painful. When that sort of stuff happens, Trevor Mack has come into the pits, no surprise.
We'll have a look at Shane Bowen on the back of Stevens.
Oh, another slide.
Yep, once again, seems to happen at the same place every single lap. Stevens just riding the brakes, trying to get the car to rotate. Seems to be working for him a little bit on entry, but Bowen is the one following and the one not driving his car as hard, it seems.
Bowen just staying consistent. I don't think he's got the actual pace to match Stevens on one lap pace, but Stevens is just driving the car so hard. As you said as well, probably having auto clutch on as well, auto blip, so that may not be as fast in regards to gear changes as what Bowen can do, and that's just all the difference it is. You can notice the difference in the drive out of the corners, and probably explains why there is a fair bit of sliding going on from Daniel Stevens as well.
Yeah, that's for sure. Oh, another slide again on the exit of the tower. That's given Bowen a run, but he's not going to be able to take advantage. Atchison there, right with them. Round he goes.
It's been a great fight between these two. Love watching battles like this because you just know that something is going to happen. You can't look away because these guys are fighting so hard, but they've just kept it so consistent. It's such a great fight.
Yeah, absolutely. You see Bowen there with the run once again, and Stevens going slightly defensive. Here we go. It's going to be the move into Sunset Bend, or is it? Bowen on the brakes a bit earlier, but he's staying inside.
Oh, contact!
Oh, that's not going to work for those guys. Bowen's lost quite a bit of ground there, unfortunately. Well, give it a couple of laps, and he might be able to have another
go in a few more laps when he regains the consistency. Lear, I am worried that he may have some damage because his last lap by a 2:07.5. Even with the fighting that Stevens and Bowen did, they just did a 2:05. So that's a 2-second advantage to Stevens and Bowen over Ash Lear, as I'm just noticing another car slow.
John
King.
Yeah, so King's battle with Jonathan Ben, I think, has been more or less decided there.
Depending on how pit stops play out for those guys, it could still be up in the air. Now this one between Bowen and Stevens, it was well and truly on.
It certainly is, and oh my goodness, I just don't pull away from this battle because it's really scintillating. But I want to mention that I did see Lear serve a slowdown penalty just briefly, as Sutton's back in the pits now.
Yeah, Sutton in to make his final stop. This will be a scheduled stop for him, as he's just done 23 laps on that tank of
That's
fuel.
awkward for Lear.
That was very, very wide for Ash Lear. Stevens now little bit of breathing room because he's got one of the misfit cars coming up in between. That was a little bit messy between those guys. I'll tell you what, we need to shout out to this right at this moment, because remember we said at the start of the race that Dance had missed the start, was in the pits, started from the pits, in the lead of the race.
There we go.
It's taken 93 minutes of racing, but he's finally got into the lead. Who's that running wide? It's Trent Gossley. He hasn't had the greatest run today. Uncharacteristic from him. He'll be looking forward to the next round of trying to redeem some of the effort that he's had today. He will not be happy with how his performance has been. Saying that, I think this round is one that a lot of drivers will be happy to see the back of, because these are such tough cars. Daniel Stevens in the pits, as we expected he would have to come in to make a splash and dash. He's coming in to do it now. Probably take some tyres, but that ends that amazing battle between he and Shane Bowen.
Yeah, certainly does. Another problem for John King as well, as Dance overtook him at the hairpin. He ran incredibly wide, so that has meant that they've come back together somewhat, or swapped positions, himself and Gosley. But with Dance's current assumption of the lead, is it bad that I'm not surprised at all by that?
No, I don't think it's surprising at all, because we know how good a racer Cam is. He's just so consistent all the time. He just can just pull pace out of a race car. He's very, very open to admit that he's not the best qualifier. So not really a big surprise, but interesting. Daniel Stevens coming out of the pits, and guess what? He's going to get straight into another battle, because Jason Martin is only just up ahead of him. Martin, we are fairly sure... Oh, yeah. We're fairly sure that Martin will make it home on fuel. Daniel Stevens, we know he will make it home on fuel, but the big advantage he's got is fresh tyres, because those last set would have been absolutely struggling.
Yeah, absolutely, and you could see it in the middle of the corners with Daniel Stevens just sliding everywhere, but I haven't seen a single slide from him so far on this particular lap, so he's looking very confident in that Audi. Look at how much he's drawn up to Martin already. That's pretty impressive.
It's great pace that he's got at the moment, so great to see how Daniel Stevens is going. Cameron Dance is coming in the pits. Rory Boyd also in the pits, both to make their final stops. Daniel Stevens through. Be interesting to see if Stevens has got enough pace left in the car to catch up to Alexander Sheridan. It's a pretty decent gap, but new tyres, knowing now that he's fueled up to get it home, chance that Sheridan, Bowen and Lear could have to save a dash of fuel to make it home. Stevens could be on an outright charge here and could close up that gap by the end of the race.
Certainly could. He's definitely going to be a driver to keep a very close eye on in the dying stages of this race. We've only got 25 minutes left on the clock, so fairly regular race time for those of you who race in the D-Class official series on iRacing.
Dance out of the pits in second position. The gap to his teammate in the lead of the race, 47 seconds. Sutton doing a great job. Lear to Bowen, 55 seconds. So the leaders of both classes with an absolute huge margin. Corey-Ott is matching pace-wise with Dean Mole. Last lap by 51.1 and a 51.3 for Mole and Ott respectively. So even in regards to one lap pace pretty much, but that car of Ott's looks very, very second hand. You have to worry, he will be worrying about overheating in that car. Of course, he's already used his spare car. We saw him with a fair bit of damage when he came in for his second stop, then had to come in for a third stop, and that has put him well and truly back in the field. He was only about 15 seconds behind Sutton, so he'll be ruining this race. He was well and truly in with a podium position. Now he's going to have to work hard to try and get himself back into third.
Yeah, certainly, and of course didn't end up getting all of the damage repaired when he came in due to the fact that he'd already taken that fast repair, so that car will be as aerodynamically inefficient as a brick with a bunch of spikes sticking out of it.
That does not sound very aerodynamic at all.
No, certainly not.
All right. Aitchison, Hockey, and Amro all getting very, very close, as well as Trevor Mack too.
Whoa.
Oh, look at the damage
And that
on
is
the
a
front
car
of
with its
Aitchison.
front end completely missing.
That's Aitchison.
That is not going to help the downforce of that thing or the front grip at all.
No.
I'm going to go back and see what happened.
Truly struggling. We're seeing Dean Mole come on past Daryl Hockey. Hockey and Amro getting very close. I think we're going to see Aitchison in the pits here to get some damage fixed, because that car looked very, very unhealthy. But
Oh, and you
Amro
know
looking
what?
very close here.
Yes, indeed. That's an awesome three-car battle. But you know what happened to Atchison? This is going to break your heart, Jay. He actually spun out of the last corner, and by the time he'd come to a stop with his front end missing, he was past the pit entry, so he couldn't come
had
in.
to go for another lap. That's terrible
Yeah.
for him. Unfortunate. He has made it back to the pits though. We'll see. Hopefully he can get back out on track as we're on board with Amro. You can see that yellow car just ahead of Daryl Hockey. Not too far away from maybe getting a move done.
Yes, indeed. These guys very close together at the moment. And Amro has been one of the guys that's run reasonably consistently throughout the race. We've obviously seen a couple of mistakes from him, but he's been one of the more mistake-free of the Nissans, and that's really paid off for him here. He'll be hopefully
100%.
grabbing a 6th place out of this for him.
Yeah, well, Daryl Hockey we've seen in the wars in the early phases of the race. The second half of the race has been much more consistent and mistake-free. But Amro's pace has been pretty good over the last few laps, doing consistent 1 minute 53s. Hockey in the 154s, but just behind Trevor Mack, last lap by 1 minute 51. Need to watch him in the next few laps. He's got the gap between those two cars down to 3 seconds. It was a little bit less than that. So we'll see when Mack can close that gap back up. There is Trevor Mack on screen there.
Oof, bit of a slide.
Yep. So
Lighten up the rears.
Amro looking strong here in the draft.
Yeah, actually very strong. And unlike the Audis, shifting doesn't play as much of a part in catching up with the Nissan, because with this thing, you can just do a quick lift when you're shifting gear and it just slips straight in. You don't have to clutch in this car. So there's not much of an advantage to be gained or lost. With shifting aids, oh, that is not the correct line to be taking. Thank you very much, Captain
not.
Obvious Reese.
That was not the fast line, but it looked spectacular, but definitely would have hurt Amro's run. He may have been close enough to get a move done coming out of turn 1, but nowhere near close enough again, and he's going to have to do it all over again. Last lap by, very evenly matched for
that's
pace.
not good.
Oh, that's a big mistake. Hockey and Amro both into the 1 minute 52s. As Trevor Mack dropped into the 53s, and he's dropping back off the back of these guys. He was going really quick, but I'm wondering if he's got a little bit of damage, because, I mean, there is a bit of damage on his car. We've seen that for a little while, but I'm wondering if he's just had a little bit of extra damage in that car.
Yeah, well, he ran a 53.0 on the last lap after setting those 3 1 minute 51s in a row, so obviously a mistake of some kind.
Gap at the front of our Nissan class with 20 minutes to go, 48 seconds. Have a guess what the gap is at the front of our Audi class now.
A minute?
Might as well be. 58 and a bit seconds, nearly 59 seconds. So
Close enough.
incredible gap that Lear has pulled out. Last lap by 2:02.7. Bowen doing 2:04s along with Alexander Sheridan as well. Brett Gerards and also Jason Martin are closing in together. Gerards actually has lost a little bit of ground on this lap. Yeah, the gap was quite extended, but it's now down to 1.1 seconds. Gerards probably is a little bit faster at this phase of the race than Jason Martin, but Gerards has been in the wars and obviously had to come in for that extra pit stop as well, so that has really hurt his race. He was probably on for a second place, you would have thought, if he didn't have to come in and make that extra stop.
Yeah, real shame for Brett. He was looking to be one of the top guys in the Audi, and Jonathan Ben with some problems there, down in 9th place. Very close between Hockey and Amro though.
Yep, Amro looking up the inside, just not going to make the move, but just trying to unsettle Daryl Hockey, and that is probably the toughest braking zone in this circuit for these cars, because unlike the other heavy braking zones, there's no runoff there. So we have seen a few drivers that have just gone straight ahead, decided to use that other section of circuit. Have a look at how close Amro is there, almost contact.
Yeah, he's getting very aggressive under the brakes as Amro. I think on the previous lap where he ran wide at the hairpin, he was probably just testing the limits of what the brakes on the car could do. Now he's found it. He's looking to try and unsettle Hockey with some faux dives, I suppose you could say. coming up to a bit of traffic as
Oh,
well.
that was close.
Take care, everybody.
That was Jonathan Bennett. They just went past there. No, it wasn't Ben. It may have been... No, I don't know. I don't know who that was. But here comes
have a look at
Amro.
this. Big draft. And he's ahead before they get to the braking zone, so
Finally,
move
move
well and
done.
truly done
Well
for
done.
Amro. The Audi that they passed was Ryan DeCartier McCarthy. As Amro, that's not a good exit, and also not too good of an exit from Hockey either. So, these guys definitely not done. They both messed up the exit of the last corner in some way.
We're about to have a
These
battle
guys-
for the last two positions in the Nissan class, but they've split up again, so we'll go back to this battle. Would have been good to focus on the last and second last cars in the race for a little while, especially if they're in a fight. No surprise to see Corey Ott back in the pits again. This is his 4th stop in this race.
Oh, that's
and that
even
car
worse
looks
now.
well and truly destroyed.
Yeah, certainly. That is a... Wow. Huge loss of front end there, and looks like he did the same thing that Jason Martin did before, just spinning out of the corner there at the top of the circuit and into the wall. Oh, that's close.
That was really close for Daryl Hockey, but he's trying to get this position back from Amro up the road. Going to be a real good fight here for the last 15 or so minutes. About 10 laps of racing to go for our Nissans in this one.
And Trevor Mack is really catching up to these guys now. He's well and truly in the shot. These guys have slowed each other up enough that he is really looking to get in on this. Oh, very close between John King and Daryl Hockey there.
And that'll help Trevor Mack in his pursuit of these guys, as well as there's even more traffic for Amro and Hockey on the front, on the back straight, I should say. They come past one of the lap down Nissans. I believe that is Matt Hunter that they've just gone on by. And they're going to get a position here because Corey Ott looks like he may be day done.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. He is still stationary in the pits. The repairs have been done, but I think he, if he intends to continue, he'll be sitting in the pits for a very long time there.
Yep. He probably will get back out there at some point and make sure he can get some points. Good thing is he is, amazingly, we've still at this point, up until on in the pits now, we still had all 15 of our starters running in our Nissans and 11 of the 15 in the Audis, which I think is a really, really good rate of attrition, because these cars are really difficult to drive. To see the guys continue on so far into the race is really great to see.
Yeah, it is. It's fantastic to see, because usually you think, oh dear, it's not going to be the best for him. Bit of a short shift as well out of the hairpin, get a bit of traction down. But
Martin's
usually
back out on track.
Oh, okay, so we got all 15 of the Nissans still out there again?
Now, quick and sick Corey Ott's car looks. He actually have got a front wing back on that car. Well done to the team for getting the front wing put back on. It would have been probably a little bit of race tape to hold that together, though.
Yeah, exactly. Probably accounts for a percentage of the car's weight now, race tape, with the amount that Corey Ott's been through. Unfortunate for him. Hockey and Amro, though, still fighting hard. Narrow entry for Hockey, and that's another one of those corners at Sebring that is very misleading. A lot of drivers like to extend and widen the entry as much as they can, but it can be very difficult to actually translate that into real pace.
Yeah, exactly right. It's sort of deceptive, this track, because you see so many runoff areas that you can use and all that sort of stuff. It's really tough to get the power down. As we said many times, there's so many different ways that you can tackle the corners, and none of them feel like they're the right one. It's such a bizarre circuit with, like turn one, the perfect example. No way have you ever got through turn one and felt like, geez, I nailed that corner. You always feel like you could have got something more out of the car. It's such a strange track like that, isn't it?
I'd even go out on a limb and say that Sebring is more difficult to be consistent at than the Nordschleife.
Yep. I agree.
I would 100% in all seriousness say that, and I know that there are a few people watching this that would disagree with me, but that is my opinion. It's certainly a difficult track to be consistent on. The Nürburgring is more of an outright hard slog, a challenge, but really takes a special kind of skill with driving and with car setup to get consistent lap times lap after lap at Sebring, in the same way, I guess.
Yeah, well, the one thing about lapping at the Nordschleife, there's a very large section of the circuit that there is one line and one line only. Here, there are 7 different lines for every corner and none of them are right.
Yeah, exactly. There's always one, like you can draw the optimum racing line on an overhead view of the circuit, but once you're actually out here and you're dealing with all of those bumps and all the curbs where they stick out in strange places, it becomes an entirely different monster. It's one of those tracks that you never really understand how difficult it is until you drive it.
The big thing that makes it behave in that way is the bumps in this circuit. As you're just seeing Daniel Attrition back out on track as well. He's got front wing put on that car. There'll probably be some race tape on it as well. He's just got past his teammate in James Robbie. But Amro, Hockey and Mac are all closing in together. They were almost all nose to tail, but they've sort of spread out a little bit as they've come past some Audi traffic. Also not too far off these guys is one of the lap down cars, but only 3 cars left on the lead lap. They are across the line. There'll be 8 laps remaining for these guys. 7 laps remaining, I should say. Sam Sutton is about to cross the line and he'll get 7 laps to go when he crosses the line. So those guys are a lap down. They may actually go 2 laps down, will Hockey, Mac and Amro, because Sutton's pace at the moment, that lap there just crosses the line. 1 minute 51.3. Cameron Dance is the fastest car on track at the moment, 149.5. And Hockey, Mac and Amro all doing 1 minute 53s, 1 minute 54s. So
Arturo Amro up into 4th place now. He's just overtaken Radar Andresen into turn 1.
I think he's still a lap down, is he?
Oh, my apologies. I am stupid.
Right. Andresen is a full lap ahead of those guys. So
okay, cool. I was looking at that and thinking, oh, that's a battle for position. No, it's not, Reese.
There is a battle for position because Brett Gerards, we saw he was pulling well and truly ahead of Jason Martin. Gaps back down to nothing again because I think Gerards has had another little mistake. There's a little bit of damage to the front right-hand wheel on that MFR car.
Yeah, certainly. And at that point, you usually see Nissans going around the outside of those corners, not the inside. Yep. So Brett Gerards in the wars once again. Jason Martin, you could see just right there a few moments ago in the frame, and that's not going to help Gerards either. There they go. They're in the same shot.
Corey Ott stopped.
Oh, no.
What's he done there? Oh, watch out! Oh, he's going around again! And that's Wall.
Me. Corey Ott's race has gone about as bad as you could imagine here. I honestly feel for the guy. He was running so well, qualified extremely well, and unfortunately, he's having to settle for a lowly position there.
Yeah, he'll be very disappointed with how this race has played out. But I must say, looking at where everyone is sitting in the championship and looking at where all the drivers are, going into the next race, we're going to have a really, really close championship fight. Jason Martin leading the championship in 6th position at the moment. So he won't get another huge haul of points. Cameron Dance, who is 4th in the championship, currently in 2nd position in his class. James Robbie not having a great run himself, currently in 9th place, 3rd in the championship. Robert Northway, 2nd in the championship. He's had a race to forget. He's back in 13th. Dutnak not out on track. Simon Mazzomo also not out on track. Dean Mole, he also has had a decent race. So Mole and Dance are going to get some big points, and they'll close that gap up on Jason Martin. I think we're going to have a really, really close championship after this race is complete, as Corey Ott is the first of our Nissans out of the race, which has taken 1 hour and 51.5 minutes to come to. I'm okay with that. I don't mind. I mean, I'm upset for Corey. That's disappointing for him. But the fact that we've had all 15 of our cars out on track pretty much that whole time is very, very good to see.
Yeah, it's quite impressive, especially when you consider usually the expectation with sports prototypes and sim racing. It's a bit of a stereotype that they're one of the more leery fields in most multi-class races. But I've been really impressed at not just the consistency, but the commitment of the Nissan field here.
Yeah, they've done a great job. All of the Nissans out on track today. We've also got Matt Hunter, who's come in for his last pit stop. He's had to come in and get a splash and dash of fuel. He'll probably just get a set of tyres because he doesn't have much to lose, currently in 15th position, but he will need to get back out there because there is an easy spot for him to get passing Corey Ott. Sam Sutton now has the lead out to 53 seconds.
And that's quite the lead that he's got there. Unassailable at this point. Makes you wonder how things would have played out if Cam Dance had not had his mishap at the start. Probably would be right there with him.
Yep. Obviously teammates at TTL Esports, so they've been talking strategy and working setup together all week. Would have started first and third if Dance had not had his issues. Of course, he had a bit of an incident on Thursday for the Oceanic Formula 3 Championship where he actually burnt his left hand and burnt it pretty good, didn't he, Reese?
Yeah, on a soldering iron, no less.
He must have done one of those stock videos where there's people holding a soldering iron. Have you seen those stock videos with stock photos of people holding soldering irons?
No,
you need to go and have a look because they would all be what Cam did in that situation and burnt their hand. You need to go and find them one day. You're going off to go and do a quick internet search on that now. But that is always something to have a funny laugh at. Stock photos are very, very funny in that aspect. HSN is around.
Oh dear. And that's coming up towards Tower Turn. That section of the circuit has not been kind to the Nissans. We've seen quite a few cars having rather large mishaps at that point.
Actually see how much dirt and grime there is from all these cars. Have a look at how dirty the front of all of these cars are at the moment. Incredible to see how messed up the front of these cars look. There's so much dirt and grime out there on the track at the moment. So we're coming up to 4 laps to go in this race as Sam Sutton crosses the line. But yeah, the stock photos of people holding a soldering iron, they're holding it like a pen.
Seriously?
So you could imagine that if they were actually plugged in, that
seriously?
Yes, I'm 100% serious. Stock photos of people using soldering irons, they are holding them like pens.
I'm not. Why? Who's in charge of that?
I don't know.
Workplace health and safety violations. Out the wazoo. Goodness me.
Now, there's an interesting race out on track at the moment, Racer. One that...
There is.
There is. Well, there's an interesting race within the race. Sam Sutton versus Ashley Lear are in a battle to see who can have the biggest lead come the end of the race. So at the moment, Sutton to Dance is 55 seconds. Lear to Bowen is 59 seconds. So they're very, very close, these two battles.
Yes, indeed. Lear, I think, losing at the moment that race within a race because he's had a couple of awkward moments with some Nissans that have put him off pace on this lap. Shane Bowen was also faster than him on the last lap, so not quite sure how that's going to turn out. Sutton, on the other hand, over 2 seconds faster than Dance on the last lap, so...
Great pace he's got.
Well, yeah, we'll see what happens there.
Now to 57 seconds between Dance and Sutton. We'll see what time Sutton can do here as he crosses the line. 3 laps remaining in this race. And I'll tell you what, that's pretty consistent because he's just crossed the line again for another 49.2. Great lap. And Dance last lap by 51.5. So that's some great pace from Sam Sutton. Of course, Sam, former broadcast member over here at SimSpeed back in the days when we were VX Online. Had to leave us, unfortunately, while he went and served in the military, but very, very nice guy and a very, very smart driver as well.
Yeah, exactly. He's got a good right foot and a good left foot, and good hands as well. What I mean to say is he's a very good driver, in case that didn't come through clearly.
looks like my calculations were a little wrong because Lear is actually leading by 1 minute and 7 seconds. So that was incorrect, and we've actually got a battle that's starting to slowly come together. We saw Amro, Hockey, and Mac get close earlier. Looks like Hockey's gathered a little bit of damage, and Trevor Mack last lap by was about a second faster, a 52.5 versus a 53.2. Starting to close that gap on Daryl Hockey. They'll cross the line with 2 to go. This could be on to the end of this race between Amro, Hockey, and Mac, mainly between Hockey and Mac.
Yes, indeed. Amro far ahead of these two, but Hockey and Mac looking quite close. Mac carrying a slight bit of damage.
Have a look at that rear wing of Daryl Hockey, though. It's all sorts of crooked and bent. That will be really hurting him for pace at the moment.
Is that, isn't that just like the normal shape of the rear wing?
I think it's got an extra little bulge in it. Yeah, definitely got an extra bulge. Just in the S on the Snap-on logo, you can see it from the shot looking at the rear of the wing. You can see damage to that rear wing. Little crease in it there.
Oh, yes, I see. I see now. My mistake.
I'll let you off, man. It's been a long day.
It has. But it just goes to show the lack of familiarity that a lot of people, myself included, have with these race cars. It's that there's all these strange shapes on these machines that can often mislead you.
It's amazing that these cars, you can see there, as we're looking at James Robbie, you can see the shape of the wing there. Very, very similar to what you saw on the car of Daryl Hockey. But, as Atchison, we were just watching to see Atchison come up.
Oh,
we just missed him. Have a look at... Now, that is definitely a damaged rear wing.
that is a damaged rear wing right there. Fair amount, too. That's a real shame for Daniel. Once again, he's another one of those guys who ran well early on in the race, but has just not been able to make anything come of it. Some technical issues, unfortunately, for Sam Sutton at the moment.
To settle, coming up with 1 minute to go on the clock, so across the line to get the white flag next time by. He'll be hoping those tech issues don't continue for the rest of this race as he'll come over to get the white flag. It's been a really dominant drive from Sam Sutton. He's led all but 3 or 4 laps of the race, and they were only due to pit strategy.
Yes, indeed. It's been a dominant performance for both class leaders here today. We've seen some very impressive driving from them. Sutton, it's just been out and out pace and consistency. Same with Lear as well in the Audis.
Well, remember at the start of the race, Lear actually gave up the race lead to Brett Gerards for 2 or 3 laps. When he finally got through, he just absolutely broke away. But smart thing was he didn't work the car too hard to get that advantage at the start, try and get his position back through. He just waited for the right moment for Gerards to basically make a mistake, as Ash Lear stuck in a big pack of cars not too far behind Cameron Dance, but the gap between he and Shane Bowen, 1 minute 12.
Yeah, wow. And that says it all, really.
Daniel Stevens hasn't been able to break into that gap between he and Alexander Sheridan, still at 11 seconds. So we weren't sure if that was going to close up. The clock now officially at 0. White flag is in the air for all of our drivers. Been an incredible race, and Sam Sutton, only 2 other cars that he hasn't lapped in this race, that being Cameron Dance and Dean Bowl.
Yes, indeed, and to take away nothing from those two as well. It's been an epic performance from Dance to start from the pits and be able to make his way up to second. Mole as well, to stay consistent, to stay out of trouble. He's going to manage to nab a podium here if all goes well. But Sutton, I think is the star of the show in the Nissans.
Yeah, 100%. Dance's drive back through the field as well, very, very good. And Dean Moll, as you said, I think he could even pull over now and still finish in the podium positions because everyone else has gone a lap down. So congratulations to Dean Moll. But Sam Sutton, what a drive.
Yeah, certainly. Through Sunset Bend for the final time. A little bit wide, making his way around an Audi, but that's not going to matter one bit. Sam Sutton making his way across the start-finish line to win this next round of the majors. Fantastic drive from him. And Daryl Hockey crossing the line there in 6th, Trevor Mack in 7th. That battle has been well and truly sorted.
It has, because the car of... Just noticing Jason Martin has got ahead of Brett Gerardis.
Oh, he has.
Oh, watch out.
Oh, whoa,
North way.
careful. Yikes.
I was rather close there. That battle between Amro, Hockey and Mac is well and truly sorted because Amro was the car ahead of Sam Sutton. And I'm wondering if Brett Gerard's actually struggling for fuel. Just going very steady.
Yeah.
Yep, he's struggling for fuel.
Oh, that's no good.
It's gone 1 lap longer than he was predicting, but Ashley, congratulations. What a drive. What a dominant performance in the Audi. We sort of suspected it based on his qualifying performance, but I think even his performance in the race has outdone what we were expecting.
As some of the greatest driving I've ever seen from Ashley, dare I say, from a talking driver in general. Just a fantastic performance from Lear. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Yeah, you tell him, Jay.
I won't be too biased because I'm a member of the talking team, but the talking team will be celebrating pretty hard there. Cameron Dance, great drive from him to come home in second position. He and Sam Sutton will take the opportunity for a photo. And Dean Mole, well done to you, mate. Great third position for him. Also well done to Shane Bowen on a podium as well as Alexander Sheridan. He had all sorts of dramas at the start of this race. Remember, he dropped back to 10th or 11th position in that class. He got himself back into the podium position, so well done.
Yeah, exactly. And once again, that just goes to show the consistency and the commitment is what brings you success in this series. So unofficial results here up on screen. Sam Sutton winning from Dance and Mole, your podium. All those cars, the only 3 on the lead lap in the overall standings. Anderson and Amro and Hockey. That's the way that battle sorted itself out. And Mac, Robbie rounding out the top 8.
And then we go over the page to Daniel Aitchison, 2 laps down with Dave Douglas, Rory Boyd, Robert Northway, Riley Curtis and Matt Hunter all finishing the race. Corey Ott, the only DNF in that entire field, which is fantastic to see. As we go over to our Audi class race.
Yes, Ashley are taking a dominant victory from Shane Bowen and Alexander Sheridan. Daniel Stevens coming home in 4th with that later pit stop in the race. Jason Martin, your championship leader coming into this race, having to settle for 5th. Brett Gerard's Trent Gosley and John King, the top 8 in that class.
And then Jonathan Ben and Brad Matheson rounding out the top 10, both 8 laps down from our overall leader, 2 laps down from Ash Lear. We've got Ryan DeCartha McCarthy. Also, the last driver to finish the race in that class with Matthew Clote, Craig Hawkins, Scott Kukas and Drew Lalonde, all not able to finish the race. What a fantastic race we've had today.
Yeah, certainly. I was really happy with how that one went. Certainly one of the highlights of the series so far. And, you know, I think, if anything, this goes to show that these cars don't get enough love at the moment on the iRacing service. You know, it's been a bit of a lean period for fields in those series in an official sense. So give the Camel GT cars a go, guys, if you haven't already. They are a great blast from the past and extremely challenging to drive, but some of the most rewarding on the iRacing service for sure.
100%. If you do enjoy the action of the Camel GT cars that we've just seen there, of course, we do have the 2 remaining majors regions coming up here on the iRacing Esports Network, but also every Sunday morning, 4 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, there is the broadcast of the official Camel GT split by our friends over at GSRC. So make sure you do check them out. I always check them out on a Sunday morning when I get up. It's always a very, very entertaining show. They have some incredible racing and some fantastic finishes. Some of the closest finishes in the entire iRacing service are in the toughest series to drive. We talk about how tough the V8 supercar is to drive a lot, but these cars absolutely put that to shame.
Yeah, they absolutely do. So we thank you all for watching, and once again we encourage you to check these cars out because they're absolutely fantastic. The fun is not going to stop on the iRacing Esports Network. We're going to have the 12 Hours of Sebring coming up very soon later on tonight, so watch out for that as well. It's a goodbye for us from SimSpeed TV, and we wish you all the best. Big congrats to our winners, Sam Sutton and Ash Lear. This has been the international region of the majors. We thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.
fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my god! Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go! Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?